Out of the gates and ready to go. Hot Bite with Hutton Withrow is underway on this Thursday edition. Glad you're with us across the OutKick network, which includes our YouTube channel. Go to there and search out OutKick. Join Chad in the chat. Subscribe and get all of the shows live or on demand. For listening to this great radio partner, we say thank you. Big show today. Armando Salguero of OutKick.com, senior NFL reporter. He will join us in 20 minutes. The very latest on NFL Week 14, a season that has flown by. Chad pointed this out earlier in the week. It's hard to believe that we're now into bowl season and we're almost to the NFL postseason. Steve Tasker will join us later this hour as well. I don't know.
What's happening?
I don't know.
Our life is just slipping through our fingers every single day.
Steve Tasker will tell us
so morbid.
What's happening with Buffalo and the Bills.
Steve Tasker is really, really good. We've had him on the show before. Always been a terrific analyst. Great player, too.
Bronson Arroyo in studio with us today in hour number 2. Former Major League Baseball pitcher and now musician.
I wonder if he's going to bring his guitar with him. You know, Tua was on the Manning cast and played Tears in Heaven for them.
Maybe he could play something while we chat with him.
He could just answer every question in song form.
With a lyric?
Yeah. So
with a verse?
He's in a band, and he's playing an event tonight in Nashville around the MLB winter meetings. And his band, Hutton, this is right. If you said this is the band for Hutton and Withrow, and right in our wheelhouse, and probably in the wheelhouse of a lot of our viewers or listeners, Bronson Arroyo's band plays covers of Pearl Jam, Nirvana, Alice in Chains, Incubus, Stone Temple Pilots, and Foo Fighters. He's a cover band for those bands. This sounds like just...
Could you have guessed, those watching, that we enjoy those bands?
Musical heaven. This is musical heaven for us.
He's going to come in and cover Chronic 2001.
It's yes, Doggy Style by Snoop Dogg. Yeah. He does alternative rock versions of all those songs. When he sings Lottie Dottie, We Like to Party. Party. I said it right. Yeah. When he does that with alternative music, you've never heard anything else like it. Maybe he'll play a little ditty for us later. I can't wait.
Yep. Chad, I can't wait for Jim Harbaugh to just sign the extension with Michigan. They are, according to reports, Wetzel's pointed this out, they continue to negotiate with him. And right now it's a 5-year, $55 million offer, $11 million per year. And it comes with the one stipulation that he cannot interview with NFL organizations. The leverage is now with Harbaugh as he enters the college football playoff with the number 1 team in the country. And if I'm Harbaugh, I just wait. You've already got reported 5 years, $55 million. And if you win the national title, you're the highest paid coach, period, based on what Michigan's already put out there. And the fact that it doesn't seem like there's a provision that stipulates anything regarding what could happen down the road based on what has gone on this season with 6 games that he didn't even coach on game day.
I don't think he's going to sign this. And the reason being, where Michigan may be okay with employing Jim Harbaugh through their difficult years or year if something does happen with the NCAA, and more is going to happen. The NCAA hasn't done anything yet. They're going to do something. I don't know that Jim Harbaugh, if he's got options in the NFL, wants to deal with that for whatever happens. And to me, Hutton, this all started. The ball was rolling downhill when we had Burgergate, right? Where there was a big kerfluffle over whether or not he knew about a lunch he paid for a recruit that was during COVID-19 that led to a lot of issues with practice time and recruiting during COVID-19 shutdown. So I think that he was already at his wit's end with the NCAA and having to answer questions to them when that went down. Now the prospect of something else happening to his program has to weigh on him. I also think if you have the least bit of loyalty, because this stuff is self-imposed by Michigan, whether you think Jim Harbaugh knew all about it or not, we believe that he did. Mm-hmm. But it's all self-imposed, all the problems they're going through right now. The amount of loyalty by Michigan and their fans through thick and thin with Jim Harbaugh on this, in large part because they're undefeated, they're the number 1 seed in the college football playoff, granted. But it's been impressive. And if you're Jim Harbaugh, that's got to resonate with you a little bit and say, man, this place really is behind me no matter what. I should honor that loyalty as well. I don't know what he's going to do here, but I do think there's probably a part of Jim Harbaugh, Hutton, asking himself the question, Do I really want to sit through this if things get bad with the NCAA?
Two things to ponder, though. Number one, $11 million per year in college puts him in the tier with Andy Reid, around Mike Tomlin's pay, John Harbaugh, his brother, Josh McDaniels was making $10 million a year. Same would go for Gruden, I believe, or whenever he was the head coach of the Raiders. The only coaches above that threshold are Sean McVay, Pete Carroll, and I believe Sean Payton got $18 million to go to Denver. And then there's Belichick, which it's believed that he's getting around 20 based on reports. I say that because all you have to do is just hold your cards and not sign anything until after the college football playoff and negotiate it a little bit higher. And here's the other thing on the flip side of it. Michigan is tired of the last 2+ years of the flirtation with the NFL. Keep in mind, you're looking at Sean Payton in Denver making $18 million a year. The ownership group of the Denver Broncos flew to Ann Arbor to try to get him to change his mind earlier this year and go to the Denver Broncos to be their head coach. They end up with Sean Payton. I say that because is this going to be an ongoing year-by-year thing that we saw with Mike Gundy for several off seasons with Oklahoma State, where he would use different programs across the country to get a bump in pay? It's raise season. And Michigan is saying, hey, we're not looking for raise season every single offseason with the NFL when it comes to the terms that we want to sign you to.
Counter to the whole money thing, and maybe this is solely about money, so if he gets what he's going to get in the NFL at Michigan, he's not going to care. It's a lot harder to be a college head coach right now.
No doubt.
There's a lot more involved, a lot more you got to worry about. Now, flip side of that is you can really be the sole proprietor of your own program. You don't have a lot of checks and balances of people to answer to, but you do have to answer to the NCAA. You got to answer to that. That is what Jim Harbaugh, I think, is fatigued by right now. He can get carte blanche at Michigan and run the program as he sees fit. And if he wants to send Connor Stallions to a game, he can do that. He can do whatever he wants. But once the NCAA starts cracking down on that, he's going to grow tired of that very quickly. NFL, you do have to answer at times to a GM, certainly to an owner. But you're making roughly the same amount of money, maybe more, maybe a little bit less, to do far less work and have far fewer headaches. And really just concern yourself with the football part of it. How appealing is that to Jim Harbaugh? Don't know, but I think it's a way sweeter gig to be an NFL head coach right now, given NIL, given transfer portal, given everything you got to worry about year-round in college football that's not football related. That's not football only related.
$11 million would put him just beneath right now Nick Saban, the highest paid coach in college football. But he's making less currently than Lane Kiffin, Mark Stoops, and Josh Heupel, based on his pay, which is reportedly, $8.5 million at Michigan currently. They're making over $9 million.
He took a pay cut, and then he got a raise, right? I'm trying to follow the process, right? When
his job was in jeopardy.
He pulled
and then he's won big.
Yeah, I'm going to take a pay cut and make the buyout. And he gambled on himself and won big, and then he got that money back and then some.
How about this gamble, though? Yes, the NCAA could loom over what this decision could be, or it couldn't. A 5-year term, there's a lot that's going to happen within the next 5 years in college football. Where's Michigan in terms of how they're going to be held to a certain standard? And is it going to be under the rules and regulations of the NCAA? I don't believe that to be the case, but I don't know how soon or how far away that is. But if we're going by the pace we're on right now, everything's happening fast.
If the issue was only a money thing, the illegal inducements to recruits or players or whatever, given the state that we're in right now with NIL, none of that really mattering anyways for the amount of money some major colleges are dishing out to recruits and to players, I don't think that's an issue. The problem I see moving forward is whoever the governing body is hates what Michigan did. And schools around him are going to hate what they did because there is an understanding that when you're playing at the highest level, money is changing hands. And I think other coaches and programs can forgive that because they know what they're doing. There's not a lot of people currently in the game, rushing to the defense of Jim Harbaugh, acting like what was going on with Connor Stallions was at all normal, right? That it was way above and beyond. It may have affected competitive balance. So I say all that to say, Hutton, you're probably right. The NCAA may not be a factor in 3 to 4 years, so who cares? But whoever is running it, whether there's a czar of college football, whether this new subdivision that Charlie Baker is talking about forms and there's someone over that, they're still going to have a problem with Connor Stallions and this illegal sign stealing deal. So
and the Big Ten
Michigan is going to pay at some point. And it's not just the suspension that Jim Harbaugh faced from the Big Ten. They're going to pay in some way. What is the risk tolerance for Jim Harbaugh right now and what he's willing to take? And if he's willing for that to be a storyline and something that's just out there on the horizon for his program for 1, 2, 3 years to come. Don't know. But these are the pros and cons of signing that and having that stability at Michigan versus I don't want to deal with everything going on with the NCAA right now. I'm just going to go to the NFL and make a ton of money doing that.
Well, and I think Harbaugh is using that to his advantage. I mean, he's going to end up with more than this reported contract offer. This has been going on for months now, not just the last week where they've been trying to get him under contract. They put it on hold. Now they're back in. And when he potentially wins a national title, he will demand to be the highest paid coach in 2024, period, above any threshold during Rays season that we're going to see where coaches get bonused and extended a year based on certain win totals or just the fact that they're trying to keep a coach staying put. And that's unfortunate when the landscape is pointing to NIL and saying that's the issue financially with all of these athletic programs. Chad, speaking of NIL, it was thought that one of the top recruits was going to take the bag in name, image, likeness. Surprising today to see Brad Seaton from IMG Academy.
Jordan Seaton,
sorry. Head to Brad Seaton was an offensive lineman in the NFL.
Yeah, I knew who you were thinking of when you said that.
Jordan Seaton headed to Colorado in a surprise announcement for recruiting and for Deion Sanders.
Yeah, he chooses Colorado over Ohio State, Tennessee, Florida. I'm probably leaving someone else out. Pretty much everyone in the country was after him, but those were the finalists. The schools, a lot of recruiting analysts felt like it was going to be Tennessee leading up to signing day. I knew when he announced that he was moving his signing day ceremony to Los Angeles that something may be up with that. And the something that was up was Colorado's now the Hollywood of college football. And Deion Sanders has compared Boulder to L.A. So that makes a lot of sense from a marketing standpoint that he's going to Colorado. Look, I don't know what he's making in NIL to go to Colorado. I'm willing to bet everything that I have that Ohio State and Tennessee could pay that or more if they wanted to based on the level they're playing at with NIL. So this was a business marketing decision for a guy who's a 5-star offensive tackle, #1 offensive lineman in America that's going to start day one. Now, he's going to walk into a Colorado situation that's desperately needing offensive linemen and help on the lines of scrimmage. So he's going to be a big-time factor for them. What does this say for Deion Sanders? Well, it's a huge jump in the recruiting rankings. I believe they just went from the low 40s to 27th nationally with that one signing. They may have even been below 40s. They're currently 27 on 3 cumulative rankings of all the different services. Colorado's 27th nationally. That's 2 spots behind Arkansas, 1 spot behind North Carolina, 1 spot ahead of Missouri, 2 spots ahead of NC State, 3 spots ahead of Washington. Just to give you an idea of some of the programs they're now recruiting with and against with these rankings. Their first 5-star prospect in this cycle. They only have 11 guys committed right now. So there's a lot more that they could bring in the late signing period. 1 5-star, 3 4-star players. That's good. Today's really good news for Deion. He's going to need to have more of that because we saw the full extent of the rebuild he signed up for the back half of this season. The start of it was great. It was fun offensively, but the reality of where they are from a roster standpoint really shined through the back half. And it's not getting any easier as they move to the Big 12. So this is the first step in a building block system of what they need to do. And Hutton, I do think there is a certain spark you get when there is a high-profile announcement by a high-profile guy that everyone in recruiting circles follows, and they pick your school, and it's a surprise. That's a big part of this. He shocked everyone by picking Colorado. That gives them a spark. Maybe that's exactly what they need to light the fire that they're going to need to go on the tear they're going to go on leading up to not just this early signing day, but the late one early next year, and then throughout the transfer portal.
To me, what this is, your team is down 10 points, and you're the home underdog or something. And you've got, in this case, Tennessee and Ohio State would be the favorite. You get a touchdown to cut it to 3. And all the momentum's starting to switch. And then the opponent, Deion in this case, has a big return past midfield to get into scoring range automatically, and then everything just kind of dies down again. He's done nothing but surprise since he took over at Colorado. No one expected him to do what he did to begin the season. He's got all the attention. The eyeballs are on that program. The fact that Los Angeles and the Hollywood right now, the star power, is in Boulder, Colorado, says that. And he's done exactly what the critics were saying he wasn't doing, which is land the top young, talented recruit, not through the portal, but someone to develop and be an anchor piece. And I'm not saying he's fixed everything, but if you're looking at the scoreboard, it's early on. But Deion's done what he needs to do, and he's addressed a position that he desperately needed. And it starts with trying to get the guy that will bring other guys with him. He's doing that, and he did it in the shadows with this, right? Like the three of us with Clay the other night, we're talking about Seton. We weren't talking about Colorado. And I think that will be kind of a storyline of the offseason where coaches are going to get pissed off at what Deion's doing, and they're going to start battling him more than what they have been in the recruiting circles.
They need this, though, to start that fire.
Yeah.
Because this should just be the start, not the finish for Deion. They have to have that. They need to finish the top 10 class. They're 27th right now.
Coming up, Armando Salguero joins us.
Victoria's Secret used to be sexy. On that note, let's talk about Victoria's Secret, because we continually talk about saving women's spaces, their sports leagues, their locker rooms, but we've never actually talked about their dressing rooms in retail stores. Well, now we also are getting the opportunity to talk about that one, because the other day, according to an article by Newsweek, a trans woman started complaining on social media that Victoria's Secret mistreated them because they wanted to use a dressing room in one of their stores. So the trans person tweeted out this, quote, "I was trying to find a cute bra at Victoria's Secret, and they made me wait until every cis woman left the dressing rooms before I could go into one of them. They even made other cis women wait until I had my turn, so no cis woman would have to be in any of the 5 other rooms." Obviously, she's meaning at the same time. So let's just examine this for what it's worth. A biological man, right, was trying on a cute bra. Why? I don't know, because if you were to see the picture of this trans person, there's nothing for the bra to cover, that I can tell at least. I'm not sure why you'd want to wear a bra, because as a woman, I can tell you that bras are not comfortable, and a woman looks forward to wearing a bra. So it's very puzzling why someone would go to all of the trouble to try to find a cute bra. But that's just me talking. Anyways, they were forced to wait by sales associates in order to, of course, protect the privacy of all the other actual women who are using the same space. And to which I say, cry me a river, right? There are so many bigger problems in this world. This does not seem like one of them that should necessarily be addressed or made all that important. Also, hats off to these sales associates, by the way, because it was only a matter of time before Victoria's Secret had to respond to this trans person on X saying this: "We're sorry to hear about your experience in our store, and we'd love to speak with you directly." And then when they were asked about the incident, Victoria's Secret told Newsweek via email, quote, "We are committed to ensuring a great experience for our customers, so we always welcome feedback. Our associates are focused on providing exceptional customer service, especially during this busy shopping season." So here's how I interpreted all of this. When I read this generic response, first and foremost, to the trans person on X, and then Victoria's Secret's very cut and dry corporate explanation to Newsweek, I actually felt kind of convinced that Victoria's Secret may have finally learned their lesson. Because after abandoning their foundational values and going woke several years ago, that is, of course, we've already talked about this on the show several times, when they used to use the hottest women in the world to model and advertise their lingerie, and then they turned to using body-inclusive, plus-size models, also biological men, Victoria's Secret went broke. Just looking at this year alone, in quarter three, they're down $71 million. So clearly, they're absolutely tanking. So the company has already said it's going to reverse course, get back to sexy, but now these responses tell me that they might actually mean it. I mean, the reply on X to the trans person was very generic. Like any person would probably get complaining for any reason to any company online. Like, for example, if I'm going to complain to Delta Airlines for not giving me a great experience, sounds very similar to what they would tell me.
Sixth and Peabody, our location with EHOP Beer and Old Smoky Moonshine. Glad you're with us. Hot Mic with Hutton Withrow rolls on across the OutKick network. Armando Salguero joins us each and every Thursday. We discuss the biggest stories that he's been covering at OutKick through the NFL. Armando, great to see you as always. Our favorite segment of the week has arrived.
Yeah, I've got the sun going on right now, and I don't understand.
Very angelic. Very angelic.
God shining his light on you, Armando, for this
Yes.
segment. That's what it is.
Yes,
Hopefully.
or either that or there's fire coming from some other place. I don't know.
I don't know who's responsible for tonight's Thursday night football matchup, but man, if we don't have an example of how bad NFL offenses are, we're going to have it tonight.
Yeah, it's going to be craptastic. It's look. Obviously, they talked about flexing at the meetings earlier this year. This should have been one of those. You gotta flex this Thursday matchup because, oh my gosh. But you know what? It's always, I think that there is a segment of the population that enjoys watching Bill Belichick suffer because he had so many years of, winning championships, 6 Super Bowls, and being relevant and being great because his quarterback was great. I think there's a certain segment, at least, of people whose teams are in the AFC East who enjoy watching Bill Belichick go down the tubes.
No doubt about it. I'm not sure that people feel the same way about the New York Jets because they seem to go down the tubes every year. So I don't know the people that are taking joy in that. But Zach Wilson is going to be back as the starter now, Armando. What does that make you think, and what do you think when Aaron Rodgers is going on Pat McAfee's show saying a big problem with the organization are the leaks that are coming out of the organization with that report that he didn't want to come back and be the starter?
Well, let's start with the Aaron Rodgers thing. First of all, he's right. When you have leaks from within the organization that use their knowledge to assassinate a player's character simply because of what is on that player's mind and what he has shared in confidence, you have a culture issue. You have a problem within the organization. And by the way, the Jets, it shouldn't come as any surprise. The Jets are a team that has major issues with culture. You've got guys not trusting the quarterback. You've got guys not trusting the offensive line. You've got a quarterback that doesn't trust the offensive line. You've got guys on defense that didn't like the offense and how they were performing. You've got guys. The idea that this is a unified organization is just not accurate. And so Aaron Rodgers has a point, and there isn't anything that you can really say to argue against it other than he's got a point. Now, as far as Zach Wilson, if we are not seeing a Zach Wilson that we've never seen before in the next 4 weeks, in the next month, we are seeing the final days of Zach Wilson on the New York Jets. That is clear and obvious. One of the leaks is that apparently the coach, Robert Saleh, was texting a radio personality telling him basically he's not a believer in Zach Wilson.
Well, can I give you my conspiracy theory here?
Yeah.
He's only playing because Aaron Rodgers is back in town, back in the building. But Robert Saleh, he was pleading the fifth when asked why he wasn't playing someone else, Trevor Siemian, over Zach Wilson a few weeks ago. Then they make the switch. All of a sudden, Rodgers is back. Wilson and Rodgers are tight, and I get the sense that Rodgers wants him to play. If he's not, if the locker room doesn't trust Wilson, that's the only reason that he's playing right now. I can't. I mean, either way, you get the same result. The offense is going to be bad. Rodgers being back plays a factor, and he's the one speaking out. He's the glue. Aaron Rodgers is the culture, and to me, Robert Saleh is doing the bidding of Aaron Rodgers.
That's entirely possible. Here's something else that's entirely possible. Zach Wilson is bad, and yet he is better than Tim Boyle, better than Trevor Siemian. I mean, and we saw them both with Boyle the last 2 weeks, and he's bad, really bad. And, I mean, how bad is he? He threw a Hail Mary pick six. A Hail Mary pick six.
That's where we are in the league now.
That's where it is with Tim Boyle. So he goes from
That's fair. Starting
to released. Trevor Siemian came in last week and played for Tim Boyle, who was benched and was worse.
Then
less mobile.
Where's Joe Flacco when you need him?
I mean, and Joe Flacco wanted to be there.
I know.
We had Ross Tucker on earlier this week talking about that. He's there in South Jersey where he lives, and I'll come help you guys out. I'd love to play. And they pass on that for what they have there. Armando, is Nathaniel Hackett still employed at this point in the season as offensive coordinator anywhere else other than a team that Aaron Rodgers happens to be on the team?
Maybe he is still employed during the season, but after the season, he is summarily unemployed. And, you know, the reason he's absolutely employed and might stick with the Jets after the season is because of Aaron Rodgers. And here's the problem with that. Aaron Rodgers has said on multiple times, I won an MVP award in that offense with Nathaniel Hackett. What he doesn't mention is that Nathaniel Hackett wasn't calling the plays. Nathaniel Hackett was the quarterback coach when Aaron Rodgers won the MVP with that offense. He wasn't the offensive coordinator in Green Bay when that happened. And so, look, can we all agree the Jets don't have enough talent? Let's just put it right out there. I would say to you that based on what we know about that offensive line,
that's
based
the key.
on
yeah, they're not very good on the offensive line for sure.
Absolutely. And they don't, they have one good receiver who, by the way, has regressed this year in Garrett Wilson. And they don't have a down the seam threat. Even if Aaron Rodgers was on that team would be at best middling, fair, okay, not what everybody was paying them to be at the beginning of the year, Super Bowl contender. They wouldn't be that. And another thing, their defense isn't all that great either. So, I mean, it's good. It's really, really solid. But is that a championship defense? I'm not sure about that. Not this year.
Armando Salguero with us. A team that does have enough talent is Buffalo, but they sit at 500 with Josh Allen at quarterback. And I just feel like Buffalo's kind of been sent to the side a bit when we're discussing the AFC playoff race with Houston and others right above them currently in the playoff picture. I know their schedule's difficult. so be it. That comes with the territory when you win a division in the NFL, and it comes with the territory of expecting to win again when you're the caliber of Josh Allen. Isn't this time for Josh Allen to go to work and actually take the Bills to the postseason?
I think it's time for the Buffalo Bills to actually win a close game late. That's what time it is, because we have seen Josh Allen, quote unquote, go to work.
Yep.
He went to work all over the 2021 playoffs. He threw 9 touchdown passes without an interception. He threw for like 800 yards in 2 games, and they still found a way to lose in the final 13 seconds of a game. That wasn't because Josh Allen didn't go to work. That was because the Bills couldn't win late. We've seen the last few weeks and all throughout this season, really, the Bills have a lead. The Bills are beating teams, and all of a sudden, late in games, something happens, and the Bills find a way to what? To lose. And it's regardless of whether Josh Allen is playing well or scoring enough, because he normally does. And so I think their problem and what has to happen is something has to click with the entire roster, not just Josh Allen, to where it's, hey guys, let's finish, because that team is terrible at finishing. Yep. They're a very talented team that can't finish. I don't understand it.
It's a great point. And they face a Chiefs team this weekend in Kansas City that is very beatable right now. They've lost 3 of their last 5 games. Broncos, Packers, and Eagles took them down. And Armando, this would be, you're talking about a momentum boost for the Bills to win a close game on the road at Arrowhead. That's the type of moment that this team needs.
That is absolutely the type of moment that they need. By the way, the Chiefs need it too.
Yes.
Because regardless of how often and how unequivocal Patrick Mahomes says that he trusts his wide receivers, that he sees that they work really hard and they're going to be fine, our eyes tell us that no, maybe he's just, exaggerating, like by a scale of 100%. It's not real. We've seen it multiple times. I'm tired of seeing Patrick Mahomes throw 50-yard bombs that should be touchdowns, and either the wide receiver drops it or trips on the 4-yard line and the ball drops on the 2-yard line, or something happens that the play that used to get made when the Chiefs were champions, meaning last year, aren't getting made anymore. And that's bad, because I don't know how that gets fixed. You can't draft a set of receivers right now. You can't sign super playmakers right now.
So there's at least one good primetime game this weekend, and that's Eagles-Cowboys. Do we think Big Dom is going to play a factor in this game at all, the way he did against the 49ers? What do you think of the matchup, Armando?
I'm stunned that Big Dom hasn't been suspended.
Yeah, he can still be there on the sideline.
I'm stunned.
Me too.
It's like not suspended, not fined, not – that was okay, NFL? That was okay? And I know that he and Drake, Greenlaw have kind of buddied up to each other through intermediaries.
Shanahan's even talking high of him now.
It's like, how does that work?
It wasn't a fair trade-off, that's for sure, for what the 49ers lost and what the Eagles lost in that game. That's what I would be concerned with if I'm the NFL.
Think about the message that sends.
Yeah.
You can have someone on the sideline pick on the other team's, maybe, I don't know, star middle linebacker, and that middle linebacker gets tossed and your staffer gets tossed. Who is better off during the game between the lines? That's a bad look for the NFL.
Armando Salguero with us. Final thing for you. So I'm looking at the NFC, and there's a great debate about top team right now. San Francisco did what they did on the road. Philadelphia, for the second consecutive week, will take on a team with 10 days rest. There's Detroit. There's Dallas. So of those four, and the news cycle to me is very cyclical every year. So now it's Philadelphia's down, Detroit is down. 5 weeks from now, are we thinking the same thing? Do you trust Philly? Do you trust Detroit to turn things around from the perception of where they are?
Well, I don't think that any of these teams are really like super teams at this point.
Yeah.
What they are is, like you said, cyclical teams, and injuries come in cycles as well. You know, the 49ers had that 3-game losing skid where they didn't have Debo Samuel, they didn't have Trent Williams. All of a sudden, they're on a 3-game skid. Philadelphia has won a lot of games, but it doesn't look the same as it did last year. Because why? Because Jalen Hurts is battling some injury stuff. The Cowboys have overcome some injury stuff. I don't think the Lions are in that 3.
Okay, yeah.
I'm not.
That next tier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I know that that goes maybe back to my bias from last year.
Well, hey.
And Thanksgiving's many ago, but I just think that 5 weeks from now, what we're going to see is the healthiest of those teams is going to be the best of those teams. Simple as that.
And we're not mentioning anyone from the NFC South, no matter who wins that division. Good riddance and good luck if you're facing Dallas and hosting them in the first round of the postseason. Hey, Armando, thank you as always. We'll catch up next week. Enjoy the football weekend.
Thank you, man.
Thank you, Armando.
Tracking the punts tonight for Thursday Night Football, Armando Salguero. Coming up, Steve Tasker joins us. We'll discuss the depth of the issues with the Buffalo Bills.
Hey, here's a feel-good story. You ready? And this needs to be talked about more. You know, lost in all of the, hey man, inspire change, Whitey's bad of the NFL. There are folks in the NFL that are, well, great dudes. The Carolina Panthers have a player named Hayden Hurst. Hayden Hurst is doing something that everybody in sports should do. Yeah, I know everybody in sports should try to be a rapper. Yeah, I know, like Von Miller, everyone in sports should get their side piece to not freaking talk about your indiscretions. Yeah, I know everybody in the NFL as a wide receiver has to act like a damn idiot. I get all that. I do, I swear. But Hayden Hurst, he ain't like that. Hayden Hurst is trying to shed light on veterans with suicide and suicide prevention. That's a good thing. No, it's a really good thing. Suicide's a major issue, and it's only going to get worse. I'm going to tell you right now, this is a separate issue, but lack of parenting. Do whatever you want leads to suicide. People want direction. People want purpose. People want guardrails. People don't want to be left free. They get depressed. They get depressed if you don't have anybody giving you direction. And that's the society of parents that we're living in. Suicide rates among teenagers are at all-time high, and I hate to say this, but they're only going to go higher. I don't know if we're allowed to say that, but that's what's going to happen. When you have a lack of parenting, when you let kids run free, drugs, alcohol, whatever they want in our current society are actually sometimes made available by idiot parents. I had a friend who let his kid drink in my house, and I'm like, you're an idiot. I love him. He's one of my best friends, but you're an idiot. It ain't cool. It ain't smart. It ain't fun. It's stupid. I can't even imagine my kids asking me to do that in our house. But anyway, that's parenting. That's where parenting is headed. But when you go overseas and you are in a war, and that war involves killing, you killing somebody, you seeing devastation, you seeing what a bomb can do to a town, the horrific things that our veterans have seen and had to do. Of course, that comes home with you. What do you think you do? You flip a switch, you come home, and you never think about it. Hell, I think about things that I did 10 years ago that weren't even bad. 20 years ago. Like, why did I do that? That's stupid. I mean, the only perfect people, as we know, are writers, media guys. They're the only ones. They're the only ones that are absolutely perfect. Even when they have affairs, even when they do stupid stuff, they write it off as, well, I was figuring life out. We, as the rest of us, don't have that same grace. And veterans come home and they're like, oh, man. Can you imagine? Let me just give you a scenario. Let's just say you are in charge of taking a hill and you and your guys gunned down 50 people. You think that just leaves you? You think that just goes away when you come back to a nation that hates you, that doesn't respect you, that doesn't help you, that treats illegal immigrants better than you? Hell no.
Sixth and Peabody, our location with Yeehaw Beer and Old Smoky Moonshine. Glad you're with us for Hot Mic with Hutton and Withrow. You can head over to OutKick.com and check out the OutKick store. Playing on a new field. That's right. The OutKick store just launched. Celebrate, we're offering a buy one, get one 50% off deal for a limited time. You can find our favorite polos, t-shirts, and more. You visit shop.outkick.com. Score 50% off. All you've got to do, visit shop.outkick.com, and the items in your cart, the discount there, automatically applied. Steve Tasker joins us, the best special teamers in the history of the game, and solid football analyst who has joined us before, Chad, one of the better chats that we have about the league and about Buffalo and the Bills in particular. Steve, great to have you back on the show, man. Hope things are well.
Everything's great. Thanks for having me, guys. Appreciate it.
Yeah, man. How much worry is there with this Bills team right now at 500 and coming off a bye and looking to this Kansas City matchup where Kansas City is very beatable? It's tough to beat them at Arrowhead, but we've seen that before.
Yeah, there's a lot of worry. No question about it. This is a team that seems to be underachieving this season. They've certainly the injuries on defense have held them back, but so the real thought is that this team really could go run the table, get to the playoffs, and make a deep run. No question about it. There's that belief. The one caveat with it is the fact that this week they play the Kansas City Chiefs, which, say what you want, it's still Pat Mahomes and Travis Kelce, and they've got a defense that's playing better than any Chiefs defense this Bills team has faced. So you got the Chiefs this week, Dallas the next week, the Los Angeles Chargers after that. Then you've got the Patriots and the Dolphins after that. And you got to run that table. It's a pretty big table.
Yeah.
And that's the worry.
And I'm thinking, like, turnovers have been there throughout Josh Allen's career. Mm-hmm. And we see the stats combined since 2018, whatever. And I feel like that's what people point to as kind of the low-hanging fruit as to why they're down this year. There's got to be more than just that. What do you point to with the team that they're missing from past seasons?
Well, I don't want to say it too, or I'll make it obvious. Nobody really cares about, in Buffalo land, in Bills Mafia, nobody really cares about Josh's turnovers because the guy scores. You know, when they're hanging 32 or 34 points or 37, 38, 41, 46 as they've done this year.
Yeah, especially this year.
Yeah, nobody cares if he turns it over because he's throwing. And that's a little bit of who he is. But when they're a 500 team, it's easy to point to that and say it's a problem. Most Bills fans, I think the coaching staff too, know they're going to live with that a little bit, the turnovers. But man, the guy scores touchdowns. And when the chips are down, that guy shows up big. He really does. He is a gamer. And so the turnovers, sure, but he also leads the league in scoring. And give me that. So most of that is the fact that, if you got a quarterback like that, that's really what you ask your team to do, your defense to do, your running game, and all the other guys on the squad. Yeah, we're going to have to overcome that once in a while. You may have a bad turnover once in a while or whatever, but let's go cover for that, and let's not have to win the game. Josh can win the game. But if you kind of got to stay in it until he finds his rhythm or overcome a turnover or whatever, we're perfectly happy to do it. That I think most of what they're doing this year some problems that they've had stems from, well, not only the offensive coordinator switch was one thing, also switching from a kind of a 2 wide receiver and with a tight end thrown in offense to a wide receiver, Steph Diggs, a really good tight end in Dalton Kincaid, and now a running back group with James Cook and Latavius Murray and now Ty Johnson the last few weeks. It's kind of a different 3 heads to that monster that was usually Gabe Davis, Steph Diggs, and Dawson Knox. Kincaid's been a huge upgrade at tight end. So it's a little bit different personnel groupings. They played a ton of 12 personnel early in the season that they didn't play almost at all in years past. So that's been a little bit of a growing pain. And we'll see where this goes. But there's no doubt the people inside the building feel they've got the people that can overcome any of the challenges they face right now.
Dawson Knox returning to practice today, opened up that 21-day window off of IR. Steve Tasker, our guest.
Steve, we know Bills Mafia legendary as a fan base, and it's not often they get down on a Bills team, but it does happen. And I've got family members who are from Western New York, big Bills fans. It felt like all the blame was falling at the feet of Ken Dorsey, and then that move happened. If this doesn't get corrected and they don't find a way in the playoffs, who do you think gets the blame next for what's going on with Buffalo from the fan base?
From the fan base, it'll probably be Sean McDermott, no question. I mean, he'll be the guy in line to carry the responsibility for an underperforming team. That's where it's going to lay, because certainly Brandon, being the GM, is getting a lot of kudos for the roster he put together, and Josh Allen and the rest. Everybody feels like they've got talent to win. Something's missing. There have been in the Philly loss and some other losses, there have been coaching decisions at the end of games that have come into under a great amount of scrutiny. On the other hand, if you're the owner of a team, you got this coach that has structured a culture and an atmosphere where, I mean, they never lose by more than a single possession. He's won 70 to 80% of his games as head coach. They rarely get beat by more than one possession. I don't know why, I think maybe the move for an ownership group might be to let's fix our guy here because we're not that far away. And if it's just one head coach that needs to learn maybe a different way to close games out, let's do that rather than start from scratch again. There's that thought process as well. I think there's a lot of people in that camp as well, but they want to see progress towards changing the way some of these games end up. They're 28-28, or up until a week or two ago, they were 28-28 under Sean McDermott in one-score games during his tenure as the Buffalo head coach. There are some teams, I heard a stat that Andy Reid or Pat Mahomes is like 35-10 in one-score games. There's something in that can be fixed from the sideline in a game. And people are laying that mostly at the feet of Sean McDermott.
Maybe it's a one-score game tonight on Thursday Night Football, although it would be a low-scoring game with the tongue-in-cheek.
It'd be a one-score game. It may be a one-score game, period.
Steve, you've covered the league with a longtime analyst and, of course, played it well. How odd is it to watch what's going on in New England with Belichick?
Well, we lived through 20 years of it here, where everything that happened seemed to work out for them. Certainly with Brady, little did we know how far it was going to fall without Tom Brady. Certainly, and we said it before, and you can point, and the cynics will say, yeah, they won all those games. They were filming their opponents' practices. They were stealing their defensive signals. How tough can it be to play even quarterback when you're always in the perfect play? There's some of that flying around. So we in Buffalo and Western New York and in the AFC East, the Jets and the Dolphins, we all have this dark specter thought about what it's like in New England, what's going on up there. So, the conspiracy theories fly everywhere. So you have a hard time getting around that without saying, yeah, this is all constructed and they're going to stink this year. They're going to get one of the top 3 quarterbacks and they go right back to the top with Bill Belichick. And Robert Kraft has known of it is going to happen all the time. They're playing along with it. And they're going to get one of the top 1 or 2 pick of the draft. And look like they're fighting really hard to win games and just not have it. And they're going to get like Caleb Williams or one of these other guys, and they're going to go right back to the top. Who knows if that's the case, but certainly the record speaks to a tank.
Steve, I see that Northwestern helmet behind you. You are a Northwestern alum, former player. Curious to get your thoughts on just the craziness of Pat Fitzgerald's exit and what all went on with that at Northwestern, and then what turned out to be a surprisingly really good year and a great job done by David Braun, who's now the full-time head coach.
Great job.
Yeah, let me just say this. Pat is a great guy, wonderful person, great coach. He was perfect for Northwestern. He had solidified himself as an iconic guy there. What happened there with his players and the coaching staff and what went on under his watch, certainly, ultimately, perhaps he's responsible for. I just think it's, I think somebody on that staff or somebody in that organization should have put a stop. It didn't necessarily have to be Pat. That could have been put to a stop by an equipment manager, let alone one of the full assistant coaches, a position coach or whatever, just stepping in there and saying, stop this stuff right now. And certainly the stuff I've heard from some of the more prominent alumni and some of the guys who are wired into the program have said, you got a kid that wanted to take it to the mat and wanted to make it public and wanted to make a big deal out of it and did not want to just walk away from it. He wanted to take some people out with him, and he certainly did it. That's the way it goes. It's an ugly way for a really good coaching era to come to an end at Northwestern. But like you said, the game moves on, the university moves on, and you hope that that in the future, maybe this can be a lesson to make sure that when a coaching staff comes as big as a college program is, you got to have somebody with their hand on the pulse of what's actually going on in a locker room and how the psyche of the team is handled. It's difficult to do, but I guess it needs to go higher on the priority list for coaches subsequent to Pat Fitzgerald.
Do you know what he's been doing this season?
I do not.
I do not. No, I haven't heard a thing about that.
No, I know that he's not. I know that there was lawsuits and stuff against the university and stuff pending. I kind of stay way out of that.
Yeah.
But I don't even have any information to give you about any of that.
Steve Tasker, our guest. 5 years from now, where is special teams in the game?
I think it'll continue to diminish. I watch these guys play special teams. I played for so long. And it's more and more difficult to make a difference with a superlative play without one of the other guys on the other team making a catastrophic mistake. Somebody has to fall asleep at the wheel for something to happen that's good for your team. Back in decades past, it was possible to have a guy to make a play. Make a play on somebody because of, alignments. You could, coaches had more at their disposal to overload one side, to take a guy
the Colts beat the Titans on special teams this past week.
That's right. To exploit a weak link.
Yeah.
But like I said, how do you allow, and it happened during my tenure in Buffalo, we blocked 2 kicks in two punts in one game. When you have something like that, that's, you need to be able to win games like that. I think it's because of player safety and the rules that have changed and the leveling of the playing field and the things that they've taken off the table for special teams coaches to be able to do. It's really difficult to make it a compelling part of the game and to contribute. And that's basically what guys who play special team like me,
right?
You just want a chance to help, right? If you can't play offense or defense because you're the backup and you're going to get on the field, you want a chance to contribute. And I think that is more and more becoming impossible for guys who play just special teams.
Yeah, I mean, your impact. I mean, you're known as the special teams guy, Steve Tasker, right? Like, I think about if you do away with it, how those storylines just dissipate and go away. Yeah, they're already minimized. But in a game that's very specialty oriented anyway, it's interesting to see what they're doing with it.
Yes, it is. And certainly there's a chance, there's still room for great return guys.
Sure.
And all that. But for the hardcore guys who protect on punts, who on kick return team up front, and for punt rushers and kick coverers,
The gunners, yeah.
it's hard to make a living doing that and be special.
Steve Tasker has been our guest. Steve, thank you so much for the perspective, man. Hopefully we can do this again soon.
My pleasure, guys. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Steve.
Always great to catch up with him.
Really good.
Yeah. And
well, he mentioned it's something catastrophic has to happen for a big play to take place in special teams now on the other side.
Yes.
That's what leads to a special teams coach getting fired when you give up 2 block punts and your punter breaks his leg and is out, right? That's why Craig Ackerman of the Titans is fired the day after, because that's all malpractice on his part that led to those things happening.
He was part of a game where 2 punts were blocked since 1990. It's only happened 9 times where a team has blocked 2 punts in the same game. And you're right.
I wonder how many of those special teams coaches got fired the next day after allowing that. I'd like to know that stat.
A high number.
Probably 7 of the 9.
Former Jacksonville Jaguars employee accused of stealing, and it's not just in the thousands, it's in the millions.
What you're experiencing is the bold taste of a Southern legend. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey, authentic Tennessee mountain-style spirits. We believe in crafting flavors that were born from tradition but defy expectation, and pioneering a new experience with every sip. Because if it doesn't do this, it ain't this. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey. Come on.
Welcome into OutKick the show. I am Clay Travis, your fearless leader. I am going to continue to argue that sports is one of the great unifying forces in all of American life. ESPN is a sinking ship. Democrats are now the party of the white, woke college graduate.
We live in a land of participation trophies.
You gotta lean into the turns. You really gotta lean into the turns.
When Leah Thomas walked in that first day, it got silent, and every girl was uncomfortable.
Very difficult to go back-to-back years in the NFL with the number 1 overall pick.
Is it fair for people to be upset with Barbie?
I've been out of LA long enough to have forgotten that libs, no matter how ridiculous the scenario, are gonna live. Another week of inflation, another week with Biden with COVID, and another set of losers to crown. People don't watch the WNBA on TV, in person, on a plane, on a train, on a bus, or on purpose. I mean, what have you seen firsthand of how this has affected you in the plant and your fellow employees? Under Joe Biden, the Taliban has retaken Afghanistan. Putin has invaded Ukraine. So if there was ever a time for freaking aliens to inhabit and conquer Earth, now would be that time.
We've seen coaches throw water bottles. We've seen coaches act like idiots. We've seen coaches slap other coaches. But I think if you're involved in carjacking, you're inherently a rotten human being. The level of stupid that sometimes gets on our YouTube chat just gives me a headache. You're born a male, play with males. You're born a female, play with females. Don't at me about it. The American people are being cheated. We, ladies and gentlemen, are being cheated.
I made the call to end the Me Too movement, and today I'm going to continue making that case. And that's just a way to further taunt these women, to make them feel less than, to make them realize that this has just become a big joke. Deion Sanders is the Donald Trump of football.
We were directly impacted by the whole Leah Thomas thing, and we were able to see you guys on the ground with your signs supporting. That was huge.
They were saying, oh, it's only 1 or 2. That's rubbish, and we all know that's rubbish. Once those trans-identifying males were able to succeed, it just encouraged others.
Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey, the bold taste of a Southern legend.
Just like that, the second hour is here. Hot Mic with Hutton and Withrow, Thursday edition. Our thanks to Steve Tasker and Armando Salguero.
What a week, everybody.
Flying by.
Fun week.
Flying by. Chad, he's in the chat. How's it going on YouTube?
It's good. Chat's solid today. I'm trying to think of what if there's been any controversy in the chat so far. Not really. It's been, nice. I'd say the room's been nice to each other today. Very kind.
Very kind.
Very kind.
Cordial.
Cordial, yeah. If there was like a most in 6th grade when I finished up my elementary school, I won most courteous of my 6th grade class.
Balanced man. Is that
really this is more evidence of just my total balance as a man that I eventually it paid off with my balanced man scholarship.
$1,000 scholarship that he received from a fraternity during Rush that he did not ultimately rush. He pledged to another fraternity.
I'm basically
which was unbelievable.
I was Jordan Seaton before Jordan Seaton going to Colorado. Shocked everyone when I didn't go to the fraternity that gave me the bag, that gave me the Balanced Man Award, and instead went somewhere else. A rival of theirs.
So later in the show, Chad will hand out the most courteous award in the chat.
Yeah, I didn't know. Like in 6th grade, my mom and everybody, man, this is just what a testament to your character and how we raised you. And I'm thinking, it's kind of an insult. Like I'm a pushover. What does most courteous mean? When you're a 6th grader, you're on the verge of middle school. For me, a lot of kids now it's 6, 7, 8. Mine was junior high. So I had elementary K through 6, and then public school junior high was 7, 8, 9 at the time. And then eventually I went to a school that had a 9th grade annex. So I went 7th and 8th grade was middle school for me. And then I went to another building that was on the high school campus behind it, separate of it, that was the annex. And that was just for 9th graders. I had a huge school, and then they eventually split into another school when I was going there.
You were sent away from the
actual high schoolers. I remember I had one class in the actual high school, and I mean, it was like I was going to San Quentin. I was going from, the county pen to a federal prison somewhere when I went to the actual high school. And I'm a freshman around seniors. I'm just like trying to dodge people in the hall, not get my ass kicked every day. And I'm taking intro to physical therapy. So that was my experience there. But I didn't win most courteous in high school. I won most eligible bachelor.
Wow.
Which, again,
will you accept this
kind of a diss, right? I feel like most courteous, pushover,
how is that
most
a diss?
Eligible bachelor can't get a girlfriend. I don't know if that was what they were going for.
What was the accolade that everyone was trying to receive? Just like king and queen of the school, or
like Mr. and Mrs. Mount Juliet?
Most likely to be successful.
Yeah, there was a Mr. and Mrs. Mount Juliet. That was a big one. There was best looking. That was a great one to get if you could get it.
What about
most athletic?
Yeah, that's the one you wanted.
Yeah, I don't know that I was in the. I didn't go into it thinking I'm going to win most eligible bachelor. Because they have the fun ones. There were about 10. I feel like 5 were like the fun categories.
Smart.
Kind of like that one. Most likely to be a movie star type stuff. I was most eligible bachelor. Then they got to the serious stuff, which was Mr. and Mrs. Mount Juliet, which was best looking, most athletic, most studious. There's another one.
There it is, yeah.
They had no most courteous. That was just an elementary award.
So I don't know this. Do they still have the yearbook / annuals that do kids now, do high schoolers still sign those yearbooks like we did?
Oh, I hope so. Someone in the chat, let us know.
Davey's saying yes, but I mean,
if you have kids in high school, well, Davey, it's not like you're 19.
No, but my cousin graduated a couple of years ago, and they were still doing it up until COVID. But I was told at least the high school I went to, they continued the yearbook tradition moving forward.
We should bring
if COVID knocked out the annual ritual of signing high school yearbooks too, that's another thing that it took from us.
I don't know if they have any cool slogans they'll put in them like they used to, but
I remember that was the time to bear all. Like I could go back now into my yearbook, and it's like girls.
We should bring them in and read them.
Oh my goodness, I won't say the names, but I'll be happy to read them. But some of them are like, I've been wanting to tell you this for 3 years, and what you said to me at that party. No, it's not that. But it's always like, I've always had the biggest crush on you, and I never could bring myself to say it. And then the next one's like, you and I are just such kindred spirits. I mean,
you're so courteous.
The writing in this thing is incredible. I think could have written a screenplay.
Poets.
With some of the stuff that was written to me in the yearbook.
Yeah, but we should do a recital.
Once football season is over,
yes,
let's all,
we have to.
Davey too. I was laughing at Davey quickly raised his hand like, oh, they're still doing that. Like he's like a high school kid. Like he's one of the young ones now. can't even know the different slang terms we throw out.
I'm glad he told us. I haven't heard about that in a long time. I didn't know if it was just a text deal or what. You just sign up. You sign a wall online now.
I think you just put it in their Instagram comments. Yeah. That's how you sign a yearbook now.
Yeah, stay in touch.
You post the senior photo, and then everyone tells you how great you look underneath. That is the modern equivalent of what we did with signing the yearbook and going to the day. Remember, we had like an actual day and time. I feel like it was like one of the last days. Well, no, it was like we would go into the cafeteria and swap yearbooks for 2 hours.
We didn't do that. I was just late.
And you're just one after the other trying to sign. And like some people, you knew it was going to be serious. They like take it over to the side and sit down and write something in there. It was incredible.
We would do it right before, in between classes.
Yeah.
Or as class was starting.
I remember having to pose. My school had this stupid dress code where you could they did it our senior year. I think it was junior or senior year, but no, pretty sure it's just senior year. You had to wear, get this, Hutton. And it's not like I went to school in Beirut. Okay. This was not an area that there was a lot of crime or anything, but they made every kid wear khakis. Girls hearing this, women hearing this, are just going to love these outfits. Khakis with either solid navy, solid hunter green, other forms of green you couldn't have, not emerald green, not Kelly green, hunter green, or maroon, not red, maroon, navy, green, hunter green, maroon, no stripes, no designs, no. If you had a logo, you had to put a piece of tape over it when you went to school. That's all you could wear year round.
Was this? No, I mean, so we did away with certain things you could not wear because of Columbine. But that's the only thing.
Well, that's what happened.
That's it.
The year before, that's what happened.
Yeah.
At our school, I was right in that same time.
So they just made you wear the same thing.
Yeah, I mean, but you had to wear that. But I remember just every day, kids either getting written up or sent home for dress code violations. And I remember even as a youngster thinking, is this really what's good for the education system? What we need to do now is make it so difficult for kids to find clothes that are acceptable that we just don't deal with them and we turn them into truants because we're going to send them home.
Her outfit's so distracting, the other boys can't concentrate on the classwork.
Well, that was the big one. The big violators were the girls because it was like their khaki skirt was not above 2.5 inches above their knee. They'd have to take the ruler out and measure above the knee of the skirt, and if it was too high,
that's how
they
Chad
got
was
sent home.
most courteous.
Yeah, I was the one.
I'll gladly measure for you.
Excuse me. I'd like to volunteer.
I brought a ruler.
Yeah. Ma'am, I'm going to need you to sit up on this desk right now, and I'm going to have to measure that. I don't think this is protocol. Yeah. I think that this is way higher than 2.5 inches.
And will you sign my yearbook?
Chad's so nice. He's always so nice. He was right there with a ruler every day to measure my skirt.
So I call it a yearbook, but a lot of people call it an annual.
Annual or yearbook. I've heard both. Both are correct.
Acceptable.
Yeah. Both are correct.
I feel like one should not be acceptable.
A yearbook and an annual. An annual could be used to describe anything that's annual. Like flowers that bloom annually. Yeah. That's an annual, right? That's just another way to describe it. Yearbook is just more specific.
Did yours have a specific name for it?
Yes.
Oh, like a slogan?
Well, ours was like, I went to a school, Lenore City, and they just called it the LCN.
Oh, you had like a common name. See, ours had like a theme. Every year was a different title, like a novel.
No,
like a book.
Ours was the same year, and then on the
millennial something or whatever.
Oh, it's like the things that you will
which
accomplish.
Volume it was.
1998 would be one. A vast horizon. 99 Mount Juliet High School yearbook. It was stupid stuff like that, but they had a different theme for it every year.
And yours was what, Davey?
The LCN. So like LC and then like a dash EAN.
Do you call someone from Lenore City an LCN?
They might. I mean, we don't use that term, but it's kind of like the San Diegaites.
Yeah.
The girls I went to college with that were from Lenore City were very, very proper.
They
were very.
I have no idea what you call someone from my town.
Went to Lenore City. Yeah.
Yeah, I have no idea what to call someone from Mount Juliet. It's not Mount Julietans, I don't think. Maybe it is.
She's from Mount Juliet.
We always joke there's a town close by called Gallatin, and buddies we had from there, we'd call them Galatians. Oh, that's another Galatian. Good to see you brought this Galatian to this party.
Top headlines today, we head to Jacksonville for Scorched Earth. And I don't know how you pull this off. A former Jags employee accused of stealing more than $22 million from the organization. Amit Patel is the employee's name. He had access to the money through a virtual money account, the virtual credit card program. And he had access to the ownership money, to the bank. Worked for nearly 5 years. Started working for the team in 2018. And during that time, he had several titles. He was manager of financial planning and analysis. And he over $22 million. And Patel went on a spending spree that included purchases of 2 vehicles, including a Tesla Model 3, beachside condo, and a $95,000 designer watch. Also booked charter jets and luxury hotels for himself and friends, not to mention also spent some money on the gambling sites while investing in crypto. I don't know how you hide this over a 5-year span with the organization.
Someone's really asleep at the wheel. Or there's so much money at play and you're making so much that, like, if you're telling me this amount of money is a rounding error for someone like the Jacksonville Jags organization, that's insane to me. This is even too much for them.
An FBI type investigation at U.S. Attorney's Office and the Middle District of Florida. But Jacksonville's not specifically named in the court filing, but they acknowledge, like, yes, who is named as a former employee of ours. $22 million and chartering jets, Chad, buying beachside condos.
It sounds like a future movie.
Yeah.
And we've seen movies where people scam someone out of a ton of money and then live the high life and are just jet setting and staying in the best suites all over the world.
And then I'm thinking, but I don't know how you pull off the lifestyle of that.
It seems to me like it's like if you can work that hard to come up with that scheme and then implement it, and then the amount of headspace it takes to worry about getting caught and going to prison about it, in that amount of time, you should just be an entrepreneur and make an actual, multi-million-dollar business.
And he clearly had a good gig.
Well, if you're that talented at doing something like that, I'm thinking it sounds like the easy road, but is it really the easy road? Because the amount of time and worry you put into it, why not just go ahead and come up with another company idea and do it legitimately?
Well, because I think you are too smart for your own good. And in this case, you get away with it for as long as he did, and you're thinking, I've come up with a plan that's foolproof.
Yeah.
And to me, it's just the extravagant lifestyle. You can't do that and pull it off.
Well,
I'm
again,
glad they're after it.
Pulled it off for a while.
$22 million.
Eventually didn't pull it off.
Right.
And it's going to end up in quite a bit of trouble.
What would you think if I just rolled up in a Tesla, Chad?
I would think, Hutton's made some sound investments. I wouldn't think anything of it.
Really?
I wouldn't even second guess it.
That's how you got away with it then.
Much like I won most courteous, Hutton won most likely to succeed at Warren County High School. So we all just wouldn't even bat an eye.
Most likely to eventually determine what he wants to do.
Hutton finally achieved that lifelong goal of being a real estate developer. That's why he's got this Tesla now. That's what I would say.
Trevor Lawrence opted not to take the cart in Jacksonville whenever he sprained his ankle. It looked more serious than that on Sunday. And he made the walk to the locker room. He passed Scott Van Pelt and others while the game was late in the fourth quarter, tied at 28. And he addressed that by saying, yeah, we have an amazing medical staff that takes care of us. You can imagine anything we need, they're going to get it to us. But then he said, we talked about getting a cart, and I was going to get a cart, and then I'm standing there, and, I'm already on the sideline at that point. The tunnel is right there. I just wanted to get off the field and get out of there. I didn't know what was going on with my ankle. I felt like I could get off the field. It's a long walk, having been there on the sidelines in Jacksonville. It's longer than the normal walk to the locker room or to get the X-ray to determine the significance of said injury. I don't know why there's the perception from players that you don't want to take the cart ride. But the perception was already that he had broken his ankle. That's what people thought happened anyway. The visual aspect of it, Chad, I don't understand why players hate that. And we've seen that before and throughout every level of football. You don't want to take the cart ride for fear of looking, I guess, weak. But in this case, he wasn't even able to put any weight on his foot, and he's being carried off. The visual's the same to me.
Yeah, it's kind of a tough guy thing to say, look, I got up, and even if I'm hobbling off the field or barely able to walk, I'm standing up trying to get off the field. I don't get it. I think this looks worse than being on a cart. I also think back to, one of the biggest moments in Trevor Lawrence's career came last year during the playoffs in a game where the opposing quarterback that I'm sure he idolizes and aspires to be, as in winning multiple Super Bowls, had a pretty significant ankle injury. And I think he went to the locker room maybe or into the injury tent for a brief time and then hobbled his way back out and finished the game. And I'm talking about Patrick Mahomes playing through that injury. I just wonder if that sticks in the back of your mind a little bit if you're Trevor Lawrence, because ultimately that's who he wants to be. So maybe even though he physically couldn't do it and should have gotten on the cart, he's thinking, I'm not going to let them see me on the cart. I'm going to do what I saw Patrick Mahomes do a year ago on the opposite sideline in a game against me and my team. Maybe that's part of it.
And I've seen the card. I know they have one at that stadium.
Yeah.
You know,
and he had confirmed.
Mariota, that's where he broke his ankle in week 16.
Well, he almost had to come to defense of the organization because people were making fun of them. Oh, they don't even have a card or wasn't available.
And I've long said.
And then he said, no, I opted to not get it.
If you're going to have a medical emergency or you have an issue, a health issue, you want to be in an NFL stadium. That's where the best staff in that said city will be, based on NFL rules and regulations for what the team must provide.
We saw that with DeMar Hamlin.
Yes.
Up close and personal. That was a lot of the conversation, continues to be, after the fact that he was in the right spot for something. If something tragic is going to happen like that, you're in the right spot for it with all the medical personnel there.
Period. Hey, by the way, Trevor Lawrence did practice today in some capacity. He was limited, but he's on track to give it a go, and he's already tried to do that and did that with a knee issue earlier this season. Chat coming up, Bronson Arroyo is in studio with us.
2004 World Series champion. And
champions.
Now he plays Pearl Jam covers. We'll talk to him about both when we come back.
In studio with us next on Hot Mic with Hutton Withrow across the OutKick Network.
Victoria's Secret used to be sexy. On that note, let's talk about Victoria's Secret because we continually talk about saving women's spaces, their sports leagues, their locker rooms, but we've never actually talked about their dressing rooms in retail stores. Well, now we also are getting the opportunity to talk about that one because the other day, according to an article by Newsweek, a trans woman started complaining on social media that Victoria's Secret mistreated them because they wanted to use a dressing room in one of their stores. So the trans person tweeted out this, quote, "I was trying to find a cute bra at Victoria's Secret, and they made me wait until every cis woman left the dressing rooms before I could go into one of them. They even made other cis women wait until I had my turn, so no cis woman would have to be in any of the 5 other rooms." Obviously, she's meaning at the same time. So let's just examine this for what it's worth. A biological man, right, was trying on a cute bra. Why? I don't know, because if you were to see the picture of this trans person, there's nothing for the bra to cover, that I can tell at least. I'm not sure why you'd want to wear a bra because as a woman, I can tell you that bras are not comfortable and no woman looks forward to wearing a bra. So it's very puzzling why someone would go to all of the trouble to try to find a cute bra. But that's just me talking. Anyways, they were forced to wait by sales associates in order to, of course, protect the privacy of all the other actual women who are using the same space. And to which I say, cry me a river, right? There are so many bigger problems in this world. This does not seem like one of them that should necessarily be addressed or made all that important. Also, hats off to these sales associates, by the way, because it was only a matter of time before Victoria's Secret had to respond to this trans person on X saying this: "We're sorry to hear about your experience in our store, and we'd love to speak with you directly." And then when they were asked about the incident, Victoria's Secret told Newsweek via email, quote, "We are committed to ensuring a great experience for our customers, so we always welcome feedback. Our associates are focused on providing exceptional customer service, especially during this busy shopping season." So here's how I interpreted all of this. When I read this generic response first and foremost to the trans person on X, and then Victoria's Secret's very cut and dry corporate explanation to Newsweek, I actually felt kind of convinced that Victoria's Secret may have finally learned their lesson. Because after abandoning their foundational values and going woke several years ago, that is, of course, we've already talked about this on the show several times, when they used to use the hottest women in the world to model and advertise their lingerie, and then they turned to using body-inclusive, plus-size models, also biological men, Victoria's Secret went broke. Just looking at this year alone, in quarter 3, they're down $71 million. So clearly, they're absolutely tanking. So the company has already said it's going to reverse course, get back to sexy, but now these responses tell me that they might actually mean it. I mean, the reply on X to the trans person was very generic. Like any person would probably get complaining for any reason to any company online. Like, for example, if I'm going to complain to Delta Airlines for not giving me a great experience, sounds very similar to what they would tell me.
Hot Mic with Hutton with rolls on across the OutKick network. 6th and Peabody, our location with Yeehaw Beer and Old Smoky Moonshine. We're hearing Bronson Arroyo right now. Some might say off the same album. Some might say. He joins us in studio, the former Major League Baseball pitcher and World Series champion, and now the Bronson Arroyo Band is in town in Nashville tonight, and so are the winter meetings. Bronson, great to see you in studio, man. Hope things are well.
Yeah, things are great. Thanks for having me.
Chad, he's telling us during the break he's fasting currently.
Yeah, I'm fascinated by this. So 3 days you can go without eating anything? Is it just water?
Yeah, just water. I did it in Costa Rica probably about 8 months ago, and it wasn't as bad as I thought. I only lost 2 pounds. But honestly, all your little kind of like areas that my knees or your wrist or your elbow or something that has a little like arthritis in it, or you got a little tendonitis, it went away, at least for a while, and they just say it's so good for you. So it's kind of a mental challenge to see if you can go somewhere and not have any food around, because I'm constantly, you're always thinking, where are we going to eat next? Like, you go on vacation, it's like, where are we going to eat?
Oh, you're speaking Chad's language, right?
Yeah, that's my love language.
Constantly talking about food, so it's just like, let me just see if I could do it.
This is making me think about my next meal even more as I hear that you're going through this. So you played at 190, currently 175. You were never a guy as a pitcher that got big over the course of your career, and you pitched for a long time. Speaking of a long time, how far back does your love of music go? Is this something that is simultaneous with your love of sport, or is it something you picked up along the way?
Yeah, I picked it up along the way. It was, I was a kid in the weight room. I had this very strange childhood, right? So I have like videos of me as an 8-year-old kid weighing 60 pounds, squatting 255, deadlifting 235, and benching 130. I was in the weight room with my father, who was lifting really heavy, and he saw a kid who was athletic. And there was always music around my house, but you were thinking about the sport at those early ages. It wasn't until I was in AA with the Pirates, when I got an acoustic guitar, that I thought, I really want to do this. But I had that music in the weight room as a kid, and my father was always singing, and he was in bands, and everybody in my house was playing an instrument. But it just didn't really strike me until I heard Stone Temple Pilots, Nirvana, Pearl Jam. There was something different about the darkness in those songs that made me want to perform music.
What is the anticipation or the feeling like on your day to take the mound versus you got a show coming up tonight?
It used to be very similar in a lot of ways. And just before you go on the stage, regardless of what, you're always a little nervous. You have those kind of butterflies like when you're listening to the national anthem. But I would say they're very, very similar. It's just that I think musically I've gotten to a point where I'm realizing that there's not a way you can mess it up unless you have a really, really bad night, right? There's nobody combating you, right? You're not being challenged by anybody. So as long as you feel good about the sets you've been playing leading up, I'm getting more and more comfortable where sometimes you want to put yourself in an uncomfortable position. It's like, can you go up on the stage and feel like you're unprepared? I'll write the set list up just before we go out and make the guys not know what songs are there, right? Just to kind of like walk the high wire a little bit. And there's a little bit of that kind of adrenaline / nerves that you almost feel like you can't live without because you had done it for so long.
Which one, and maybe the answer is kind of neither in terms of it, but which one gets easier as you go along the quickest in terms of being a starting pitcher in Major League Baseball or performing as a musician on stage?
I think the music probably a little bit. Like I said, you're going against the best hitters in the world as a baseball player. You never really feel like you've got a grasp on it because day to day, you're pitching every fifth day, and you can have 2 or 3 bad ones in a row, and you feel like, man, I'm never going to come out of this. Where musically, you could have a bad night if your voice is beat up, or maybe you forget a couple lyrics, but most of the time, people don't really notice. It's not like a 3-run homer in the second. It's hard to hide that. So I think musically it's gotten a little bit easier, but if you strip away the band and have me just play with an acoustic guitar, then it's a whole different ballgame, and then you feel much more vulnerable and you feel like you're under the microscope much more.
So, as a guy who, meeting you here for the first time, seemed like a pretty laid-back dude, like a pretty nice, friendly guy. I would not think that sitting here and talking to you right now that you'd be the guy involved with multiple incidents with Alex Rodriguez over the course of a game, right?
Yeah.
We respect it, though.
I'm sure there's a different edge, and we saw that at times with you as a competitor and a professional baseball player. But how often do you hear about that? Either way, and you can say which one is you hear about the most, either hitting him and starting the brawl, or then when he starts to come after you, starting the brawl, or the incident in the ALCS where he knocks the ball out of your glove going to first. Which one is the most memorable to you? Which one is the most memorable to your fans?
Well, to me, the playoff, him slapping the ball out of my hand was more memorable, than just a big fight in the middle of the regular season. But the July 24th fight with the Yankees there in Fenway Park has almost become like Bobby Bonilla Day, whenever Bobby gets that check from the Mets. Yep. Well, every time it's July 24th, I'm getting text messages from all over the country saying, look what just popped up on my feed. So it's like, and the funny thing is I've never had a conversation with Alex, right? I was in Boston playing a set about a year ago, and Julian Tavares ran up on me, and he said he hangs with Alex all the time, and he's like, Alex would love to hang out with you, man, but we've just never made it happen. I've never crossed paths with him, and in years past, I heard that he didn't really want to talk about me or mention me, so it felt like that he still had beef with it.
You're getting mixed messages. His buddy's saying hang out anytime, and then other people are saying that you didn't want to talk about it.
Yeah.
How quickly do you know that it's about to go down when that happens? Because I went back and watched it on YouTube probably 20 times today before this interview, and it's pretty quick that he is staring you down, saying things that you can pick up on camera that aren't very flattering to you. How quickly did you know, okay, here we go?
I actually didn't think the brawl was going to start there, only because, for one, it was an 87-mile-an-hour sinker that hit him in the elbow pad, so it wasn't like I stuck him with 99 in the ribs, right? And then in my past history, I had hit some guys not on purpose, and that one wasn't on purpose either, but I'd hit guys like closer to their face. Like I hit Eric Young twice in the same game in Texas, and I thought for sure the second time he was coming out to get me, and nobody had ever charged a mount on me. So I wasn't really thinking along those lines, but him and Veritek got into it really, really quickly, and it just escalated fast.
There's got to be guys in the clubhouse or on the field that are hoping something pops off, though. You've got those teammates that are wanting the brawl to start, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And back then, I mean, you're talking about 2004. It's right on the cusp of Major League Baseball really kind of getting away from steroids.
Yeah.
And a lot of these guys were already huge by nature, and then you pump in a bunch of testosterone. I mean, there was guys in locker rooms that absolutely loved to fight. I mean, even back in the minor leagues, guys like Kyle Farnsworth. You've seen him with the Cubs, just an absolute monster.
And A-Rod was the one, I mean, he's admitted that he was giving information out. So guys had to be hoping that something would happen with him.
Yeah, and I think, that rivalry, too, there's something about the whole atmosphere that gets ramped up that's not necessarily personal to the players. Like, you play in Yankee Stadium, you're warming up in the bullpen, and they're cussing your mother out by her middle name, and the cops are laughing about it, And so there's this whole idea that even up in the crowd, there's fights going on. There's a lot of chaos going on. And if you rewind from 2003 in the playoffs, we also had a big thing go down with those guys that year where Kareem Garcia jumped over the wall and they beat up a guy who worked for the Red Sox. And we also had the brawl at home plate when Pedro Martinez threw Don Zimmer down to the ground. So, this was that fire was already brewing before Alex got there, and his kind of demeanor and what people perceived as a cocky player really didn't help the situation.
Why don't things pop off more behind the scenes? We see fights that break out between NFL players in the tunnel, for instance.
Right.
Do things happen behind the scenes that are kept closed off, or does it really just not go beyond the diamond?
Not that much. It's weird. In baseball, guys kind of respect the fact that a brawl might break out, but afterwards, I have not
You wait for the fastball the next day.
I've heard of guys in the minor leagues like doing, coming the next day and like drilling somebody with a baseball in the outfield or something. And some of those guys have been kicked out of baseball for a long time. So it feels like if it's happening between the white lines, kind of it's cool to do whatever. And then otherwise, it feels like you might get booted out of the game if something gets too gnarly. So I personally have not seen that many times in the game.
What's your advice to anyone? I know it happened later in your career, but to anyone going through Tommy John surgery in that injury? Shohei Ohtani, I know it wasn't technically Tommy John, but he's gone through that before. To him or anyone else going through that process, what's your advice to them?
I think just be patient because everybody's body is so different. I know guys have come back in 10 months and felt really good, and I know guys have been grinding for over 2 years to try to get the pain out. And so, depending on the type of surgery you have, there's multiple ways you can have a Tommy John surgery depending on who's doing the work. And also everybody's body just responds totally different to their mechanics and everything about it. When I had it done, I was already 37 years old, and my shoulder was tore at the same time. So I had both surgeries, and it took me parts of 2 years to try to get back. Only pitched 14 times for the Reds after that and still never really got pain-free.
Which organization do you wish you would have stuck with longer?
I would have loved to play in Fenway longer. When I was traded there, I had signed this undervalued deal, and they had promised me they weren't going to trade me, and they traded me before the season started in the middle of spring training. And playing in Fenway Park was like being at a rock show. It really was like being at a Pearl Jam set. And every night people were walking into the stadium and you could see the look on their face like we might not ever come to a place like this again. It's expensive. You bring in your family. It almost felt like the Beatles were reuniting every night, even if you played the worst team in the league on a Tuesday afternoon. And, I really enjoyed that. I heard plenty of other guys like David Wells talk about, people don't leave you alone here in New England. But I loved walking down the street and people knowing who I was and going to the ballpark and feeling like you were playing under the scrutiny of kind of a playoff vibe every night.
Eddie Vedder's a huge baseball fan, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
He's a part of your retirement with the Reds. How did that come about, and what can you tell us about? Obviously, you love his music, and you're going to play it tonight at this concert we're going to be talking about. But how did that relationship come about?
I just went to a show. It was an off day. I've finally seen those guys. They've been touring in the summer, and they never toured in the winter back in the day. And it was, we play every single night, so we never get a chance. And this one off day, they were playing in Columbus. I drove up. Nobody else wanted to go. I asked a bunch of dudes on the Reds, you guys want tickets to the show? They said, no, we got laundry to do. So it wound up being me and a clubhouse kid named Brian Harris. And we just hung out with Eddie in his green room as he's writing up the set list. And we had a nice chat for 2-3 hours that night. And, in the ensuing years, I got to be friends with him and play music with him. And me and Sean Casey have sat with him sometimes for hours and had conversations and played, 25 Pearl Jam songs, kind of passing the guitar back and forth. And, what I found is that he's such an authentic guy. And, being in his presence just for mere moments, he makes you feel like it matters. And he listens to every conversation in present tense and remembers people's names. And, everything that I thought he could be, he was that much and more. So, I mean, for me, he's been a hero.
Speaking of present tense, great Pearl Jam song you just referenced with that.
Absolutely.
I saw him in concert for the first time recently, blown away by his performance with Pearl Jam. And there's something about that voice with him that just really grabs you the moment it happens. And I'm watching the show, and I'm thinking, this set list is so perfect. The way it flowed through, the way he started, the way it kind of built throughout. When you're sitting there and he's going through his set list, is he asking for, not advice, but, hey, what would you guys like to see? What do you think about this? Or does he have it all in his head right there and he's just jotting it down?
No, he's writing it down, and he normally is kind of like taking in the history of playing in that same city or that same venue, right? And he'll look back at the old set list and say, well, we didn't play that then, or we only played these 12 songs because it was 92, and that's all the songs we had. So he tells those stories on stage, and he's taken all that into account. He's also taken in what's going on in the world. There could be, could be National Religion Day, and maybe he's going to throw in something specifically to spite that, and just every night for him, it started early on where it looked like he wanted to write up a different set list, which in the early days seemed like, man, we need to get to a hit. We're playing all these songs that people don't quite know. But that is the magic of a Pearl Jam show now, is going and not knowing what you're going to get.
What will you open with tonight?
I don't remember what's on the set list, but it's either, I think it's One I Love by REM or Once by Pearl Jam, one or the other. We play 2 sets with this band. We play a set that goes from Beatles all the way through the Foo Fighters, and that's what we're doing tonight. But there's a lot of times we've been playing with a Chili Pepper cover band in Cincinnati, and we just do an hour and 15 minutes of Pearl Jam. So those nights are a little different. But today is kind of a mixed blend of a bunch of stuff.
What's the best show you've attended? It doesn't have to be the best artist or band, but the best moment for you when you look back.
Yeah, feeling. I think one day I was in L.A. writing this record. My buddy Jamie Aronson plays guitar for Miley Cyrus, and he's in my band that's on that album. And he had tickets to the show. It was Noel Gallagher from Oasis, the brother. who wrote all that stuff. I wrote Wonderwall and all the big hits. And I was a little late. And by the time I got there, he had this little balcony seat and was looking out over this small theater with only about 2,000 people. And it was smoky in the room. And he was just him with an acoustic guitar on this song. And he said, I'd never really listened to Supersonic. And he said, something along the lines of, I don't ever want to play this song again. I'm just playing this for you guys. And he played Supersonic by himself. And it was so sick. It was just like, I was just entranced by watching that guy there with an acoustic guitar.
It's amazing. So tonight, 7 o'clock, 7:30, Woolworth Theater. Nod, Kathy, if I'm getting it right.
Yeah, we're hitting the stage probably 8:30, 8:45. And we'll be playing about an hour and 15-minute set. There's a DJ afterwards.
I bet it's at 9.
Yeah.
It might be 9, but honestly, you go to a Pearl Jam show, they hit on time pretty much, maybe 10 minutes late, and I kind of like that.
That's how you know you're getting older. As Eddie Vedder gets up there in age, like, man, I know you guys got places to be. I'm not going to keep you here all night. We're going to start it on time.
Absolutely.
What's on your rider backstage? What do you need in the room? What's the best thing?
Well, tonight, nothing, because he's fasting.
I don't barely need anything, but usually the band needs a little bit of Jägermeister. My one guitar player needs Jägermeister. We need some chicken and some salad and just some waters and maybe a couple of Diet Cokes. I mean, I try to keep it really simple. When we play around town in Cincinnati, I've never asked to play. I don't promote. We play about 15 or 20 times a year, but I try to keep it cheap, man. We try to keep it to like $3,000 to $5,000 where we can come out, give you a 2-hour show. Everybody gets paid a little bit, but we sleep in our own bed.
We can't wait to be there tonight. It's going to be a blast.
Really excited about this. It's going to be a lot of fun. Thanks for doing this in studio with us also,
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Appreciate it, man.
Next time in, man, you're welcome here anytime.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, you won't be faced.
We're here in Nashville, too. We're in a distillery. We're in a brewery, but please bring your guitar. We have one in here. We should have offered it to you, but we'd love to hear something.
It needs to be tuned. You can take care of that for us as well.
We'll have to do that sometime. I'm writing a new batch of songs right now. It just started.
Perfect.
Bronson Arroyo has been our guest. Check him out with the Bronson Arroyo Band, and we'll give our review tomorrow.
Album's out right now. We're going to send out all that information also.
Stay tuned. More coming. Hot Mic with Hutton Withrow across the OutKick Network. Straight ahead.
Hey, here's a feel-good story. You ready? And this needs to be talked about more. Lost in all of the, hey, man, inspire change, Whitey's bad of the NFL, there are folks in the NFL that are, well, great dudes. The Carolina Panthers have a player named Hayden Hurst. Hayden Hurst is doing something that everybody in sports should do. Yeah, I know everybody in sports should try to be a rapper. Yeah, I know, like Von Miller, everyone in sports should get their side piece to not frickin' talk about your indiscretions. Yeah, I know everybody in the NFL as a wide receiver has to act like a damn idiot. I get all that. I do, I swear. But Hayden Hurst, he ain't like that. Hayden Hurst is trying to shed light on veterans with suicide and suicide prevention. That's a good thing. No, that's a really good thing. Suicide's a major issue, and it's only going to get worse. I'm going to tell you right now, this is a separate issue, but lack of parenting. Do whatever you want leads to suicide. People want direction. People want purpose. People want guardrails. People don't want to be left free. They get depressed. They get depressed if you don't have anybody giving you direction, and that's the society of parents that we're living in. Suicide rates among teenagers are at all-time high, and I hate to say this, but they're only going to go higher. I don't know if we're allowed to say that, but that's what's going to happen. When you have a lack of parenting, when you let kids run free, drugs, alcohol, whatever they want in our current society are actually sometimes made available by idiot parents. I had a friend who let his kid drink in my house, and I'm like, you're an idiot. I love him. It's one of my best friends, but you're an idiot. It ain't cool. It ain't smart. It ain't fun. It's stupid. I can't even imagine my kids asking me to do that in our house. But anyway, that's parenting. That's where parenting is headed. But when you go overseas and you are in a war, and that war involves killing, you killing somebody, you seeing devastation, you seeing what a bomb can do to a town, the horrific things that our veterans have seen and had to do. Of course, that comes home with you. What do you think you do? You flip a switch, you come home, and you never think about it. Hell, I think about things that I did 10 years ago that weren't even bad. 20 years ago. Like, why did I do that? That's stupid. I mean, the only perfect people, as we know, are writers, media guys. They're the only ones. They're the only ones that are absolutely perfect. Even when they have affairs, even when they do stupid stuff, they write it off as, well, I was figuring life out. We, as the rest of us, don't have that same grace. And veterans come home and they're like, oh, man. Can you imagine? Let me just give you a scenario. Let's just say you are in charge of taking a hill and you and your guys gunned down 50 people. You think that just leaves you? You think that just goes away when you come back to a nation that hates you, that doesn't respect you, that doesn't help you, that treats illegal immigrants better than you? Hell no.
Sixth and Peabody, our location with Yeehaw Beer and Old Smoky Moonshine. Hot Mike with Hutton and Withrow rolls on across the OutKick network.
How cool was Bronson?
He's awesome.
Awesome dude. Laid back.
You think of the corn rolls when you see him?
Sometimes, yeah. Didn't quite get to that fashion choice, that style choice that he made.
Maybe next time.
Yeah.
Love the music as well.
Seems like a dude that would have like ironic cornrows at some point in his life, right? When you talk to him, hear him. Guy who's fasting for 3 straight days.
That's I always wanted to be able to play an instrument, but I also quit piano lessons. I feel like every person in their life has quit instrument lessons for that at like 5th or 6th grade.
I love the idea of being able to snap my fingers and just say that I can play an instrument and know, some songs that I can go to all the time. And the idea of actually practicing that skill would
but the dude
drive
in college
me crazy.
that could play guitar.
Oh, yeah. I learned like 2 songs in college because every fraternity house has 3 or 4 guys. Ours had a band. They had a group of guys who were huge in music that they did their own, like they would go out and play other frat parties. But they were in our house, so they would teach us, here's how you play Wish You Were Here by Pink Floyd, or Every Rose Has Its Thorn by Poison was one that I could play like just the first chords to.
Yeah.
But, to sit there and actually practice it, and, it's more power to anyone who can play an instrument to that level because it takes a lot of work.
How many of us in studio had lessons for piano? No one?
I never took a piano lesson. My 8-year-old daughter is in piano lessons right now.
Drums for Colin. Any other instrument? I feel like Matt or Davey should have done something.
The oboe, anyone? No?
Guitar.
Accordion? Matt, you play the accordion? Trombone? Okay.
Yeah.
Never played a single instrument in my life other than for a 6-month period when I was in college.
Chad was jazz flute.
Yeah, Yaz. The J is it's a soft J, like yogging. Yeah, Yaz flute, actually. I played the recorder in elementary school. We were in music class, and you had to learn something on the recorder. Our buddy David Reed, knows how to play the recorder, which is like a flute light, is how I would call what the recorder is.
I think it's more like a toy.
It's the flute, but easier. There's not as many notes to play on it. That's how I describe the recorder.
Either way, awkward.
Very, very awkward. But I don't think that I've never even really toyed around taking lessons, any of that. Again, my daughter's 8 and she's taking piano lessons and does a good job with it, but it's a lot of work. Lots and lots of work.
How about a week after Sports Illustrated is using AI in an awful way as a test run for stories and then having the fake pictures and bios to go along with the author, but then you've got the company saying that they're using, hey, these are actually real people. You've got the publisher who's jettisoning those that that are up at the top of the food chain making these decisions. And you've got the bosses saying, hey, we've got a rant about the things you guys are doing is useless. Stop doing dumb stuff and more. And more power to them. Here's hoping that there's more over. How about this stance, Chad? God forbid we actually have those up top surveying and checking into the information that sites are putting out and how that information is being recycled over and over and over again, and who's actually writing it.
Yeah, and I think part of it is just the ability to hire good people that you trust to put, real things out there, whether that be an editorial team or writers or whatever it may be. But to do that costs money. To hire good people, it's going to cost you some money. So that's I feel like we've had this conversation since the start of our show over a decade ago.
Yeah.
And it's just evolved over the years. Now AI is the big threat. But remember, for a while, it was all of these older journalists that are really good at their job. They're getting laid off because papers at the time back then or websites don't want to pay them for their work when they can pay some 22-year-old out of college nothing. That's not going to give you much or do a very good job, but they're a lot cheaper. And now it's evolved into, now AI is the threat. And human beings of any age aren't going to be the ones writing the stories or making sure there's an editorial process or seeing that something is real before they publish it. All of these things. I don't know what the answer is ultimately, other than I just wish every media company just tried to do their best and tried to be good and tried to be right.
Well,
more times than not, and weren't trying to, fool the system in any way.
I don't know,
I guess
though,
I was.
I don't know if this approach is taking on that stance altogether. It's the Arena Group, the company that operates Sports Illustrated now. And the quote from one of the stakeholders, who is controlling ownership, had this on a presentation, I believe, just virtually. No one is important. I'm not important. The amount of useless stuff you guys do is staggering. So to me, this is also a way to lay off employees and point to AI as the problem when you're not really giving anyone a solution, right? You're doing away with employees, and this AI in this case is doing the same thing. I'm not saying that certain employees are you have to stick around, you have to keep people around, but I doubt they're going to employ the same amount of people moving forward. They're already within SI nearly 70 years now. They were printing, now they're online. They're already in financial straits, dire straits. I'm just saying, to me, this feels like more of an excuse than it is it's a cost cutting measure more than anything.
Cost cutting measure.
I want it's like we talked about journalism. SI had some really good stuff. And now what's the perception? Even though you're cutting costs, what's the perception of SI now?
Well, and even if you're not seeking journalism, there are places that should be absolutely all about journalism,
that's right.
capital
That's
J, all the time. And we know those places that should be doing that and go to those places for the capital J journalism. There's plenty of space in media for niche things and coverage of stuff. There's plenty of
within
space
the same company
for irreverence, for comedy, for commentary. There's spaces for everything. I would just like to have the fallback be, let's be good. Let's be good at what we do. Let's brand it appropriately and be good at the brand that we are.
Yes.
And hire the right people to do their jobs. If I had to boil things down to a solo mission statement for a media company, it is that. There are a lot of places that try to be everything at once, and in doing so, they become nothing. There are other places, I think the New York Times has fallen guilty of this, and I've been a huge fan of the New York Times in the past. I think there are other places that for years and years and years, they may have been the gold standard of journalism with a capital J, that now they're trying to be too much because they feel like the financials of it doesn't work out. Or they try to protect a certain idea or a certain thing that they want to espouse other than just giving someone the news. I think that is an issue. I just think people need to be better at being what they are as a whole. That sounds simple, Hutton, but it's so complex.
Man.
For managers, for companies, for everyone else. Be good at what it is you're doing and what it is you do.
Yeah.
And then we don't have to read stories about SI employees getting reamed out because they're so stupid and they're useless. And then here's more stories about AI being something that anyone wants to click on or read. My hope is that the consumer weeds that out and says, this is dumb. I don't want to read something, an AI algorithm generated back out to me. I want to read something a little more teeth, substance, humor, whatever it is you search. Let's get more of that.
Well, and to me, from the news perspective, if Gannett is willing to have their local newspapers do this and do a trial run with it, and just when it fails miserably, they point back to, we were just testing this out. For what reason? For what reason? That's where this gets out of hand. Because there's only one reason you're picking up the newspaper and looking at the front page, right? You get different things in there. There's entertainment, sports, whatever. But the hardline news is on the front page. And I want to be able to pick up the front page or read online and know that someone wrote this and covered this and is reporting on this legitimately. And I feel like we're really blurring the lines, and it's probably been going on for a long time, of who's behind it, what they're doing, and why they're doing it. And that's just, it's awful. And it sucks when you know that it's a measure to cut costs, right?
Yeah,
I think the capital J journalism is going away because the employers are doing away with it, so they can have the headline and the click instead of the read. I don't think there's enough people reading those things as much as clicking on it for the gossip column.
And I think so many people are just looking for the next shortcut that's going to allow them to work less and then get the same amount of money generated.
Right.
And AI is just that next thing. Before it was hiring a bunch of younger people fresh out of college on their way up that don't do as good of work, but
Right.
you're going to hire them
You're
because
right.
that's going to generate more content.
That's what television
and get
news
more
is.
clicks and get more money and ad revenue and all of that. And I just, there needs to be a reset to the good. And I'm not talking about the greater good or anything. I'm talking about quality. There needs to be a reset to people that want to work hard, and as long as it takes to find the quality that then generates the money. My head is not in the sand. I understand that money and revenue ultimately is what's going to drive these companies. I think there's a way to achieve both goals without selling yourself out and doing everything AI generated and having to go down a certain path that debrands something that was already a good brand or takes away from what it is you're trying to do.
And don't forget this. This would not be a headline now had it gone well. They would have just rolled it out. It's not like they admitted all this on the front end. Gannett had to do away with it and issue statements about it, saying that they were putting this on pause instead of continuing to try it out. That's what worries me, is whenever it goes well, and who knows what's working and what's not right now, because they're not going to tell you up front.
Well, and who knows what's actually really going on
right.
in terms of that, where they think they're getting away with one right now because they're generating a similar amount of coverage and or revenue, and they're doing this in other spaces.
When I think the same laziness goes on up top, where those overseeing this aren't really doing that, where you don't have to work as hard as at what you're doing because you can get away with it and nothing's going to happen.
Well, and it's those, and that's kind of the middle management part of this, I think. Those at the top are sitting there thinking, how can I make more money without paying anybody?
Well, here's the revenue. Yeah.
And that's what they're thinking about. And then people below them are thinking, how do I just keep my job and make those above me happy while also making sure that I'm doing something here? And then you get this constant vicious cycle of more of what people complain about with media.
You know where those companies, though, that are trying to cut costs actually spend? Live sports. Thanksgiving Day, the broadcast for NFL averaged 45 million viewers. 45 million, over 50 million for the Dallas Cowboys. That's where they're spending money in the ad space.
Those companies are, yes.
And the NFL continues to crush it with those numbers. That's what they look at.
I was thinking about the other day, I honestly believe the only place that I see ads on the web, just scrolling through, I'll see it. But the only other places I'm truly seeing ads that air in a traditional sense
where people watch them
are live sporting events. Because anything else I'm watching, now streamers are going to advertising, supported, all ad-supported stuff also. So I am seeing that if I'm watching a show and it has to go to a minute and a half of ads or whatever, I'm seeing them. But other than that, I'm just not watching a lot of traditional TV with ads. I'm watching something on a streaming service that has no ads. I'm watching a movie somewhere else. I'm watching a YouTube video on my computer. Or I'm watching live sports where I see the ads of today. That's really the only place I'm exposed to it.
So the NFL had Nielsen do this survey. 45.4 million was the average. It's a 33% increase from last year, which was 34 million. That's insane.
That is crazy.
Dallas is always playing.
Yep.
Coming up, we got the top headlines of the day, including, the Pac-12 is no more. And the Big 12 commissioner is saying he's not happy about it. That's next.
What you're experiencing is the bold taste of a Southern legend. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey, authentic Tennessee mountain-style spirits. We believe in crafting flavors that were born from tradition but defy expectation, and pioneering a new experience with every sip. Because if it doesn't do this, it ain't this. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey. Come on.
Welcome into OutKick the show. I am Clay Travis, your fearless leader. I am going to continue to argue that sports is one of the great unifying forces in all of American life. ESPN is a sinking ship. Democrats are now the party of the white, woke college graduate.
We live in a land of participation trophies.
You gotta lean into the turns. You really gotta lean into the turns.
When Leah Thomas walked in that first day, it got silent, and every girl was uncomfortable.
Very difficult to go back-to-back years in the NFL with the number 1 overall pick.
Is it fair for people to be upset with Barbie?
I've been out of LA long enough to have forgotten that libs, no matter how ridiculous the scenario, are gonna lib. Another week of inflation, another week with Biden with COVID, and another set of losers to crown. People don't watch the WNBA on TV, in person, on a plane, on a train, on a bus, or on purpose. I mean, what have you seen firsthand of how this has affected you in the plant and your fellow employees? Under Joe Biden, the Taliban has retaken Afghanistan. Putin has invaded Ukraine. So if there was ever a time for freaking aliens to inhabit and conquer Earth, now would be that time.
We've seen coaches throw water bottles. We've seen coaches act like idiots. We've seen coaches slap other coaches. But I think if you're involved in carjacking, you're inherently a rotten human being. The level of stupid that sometimes gets on our YouTube chat just gives me a headache. You're born a male, play with males. You're born a female, play with females. Don't at me about it. The American people are being cheated. We, ladies and gentlemen, are being cheated.
I made the call to end the Me Too movement. And today I'm going to continue making that case. And that's just a way to further taunt these women, to make them feel less than, to make them realize that this has just become a big joke. Deion Sanders is the Donald Trump of football.
We were directly impacted by the whole Leah Thomas thing, and we were able to see you guys on the ground with your signs supporting. That was huge.
They were saying, oh, it's only 1 or 2. That's rubbish, and we all know that's rubbish. Once those trans-identifying males were able to succeed, it just encouraged others.
Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey, a bold taste of a Southern legend.
Just like that, final hours here for the Thursday edition. Hot Mic with Hutton with Row across the OutKick network. Includes YouTube. You can subscribe to the channel. Search out OutKick. Chad is in the chat currently. Any reaction to Bronson Arroyo, who's in studio?
A little bit. We got someone in here that's just completely taken over.
Oh, wow.
We just started.
No, it's not cordial anymore, Chad.
We get occasionally like someone who just, it's like stream of consciousness, and I can't even connect the dots or the thread between one post to the next of what the person's talking about. So that's what's going on there right now.
Well, good luck with all of that as you try to be the policy holder, holding people to a certain standard. You're the Big Ten for the bigger company that is the NCAA, and you're laying down the law when no one else will.
Yeah, I've given up on today. Today's it's light. It's light in there. Someone just asked the question: does the promo person get paid one time or weekly?
Oh.
That's the last post.
Yeah.
That's where it's devolved. That's where we are right now, Hutton. I don't know how to answer that.
Yeah.
I don't know the answer to that. I don't know what to say. Someone just put keep up, Chad. Here's what
Chad
I'm gonna
just
write.
responds. You just respond with like, there's gallons in quarts, like the Bargatze.
Yeah. You
George
were asking
Washington
about
skip.
measurements again?
Yeah.
Okay.
I've got you.
I'm just putting sorry. I have failed you all today.
It's been that one day.
For that, I apologize.
You know what has failed us? It is NFL offenses this year. Tonight, Thursday Night Football, Pittsburgh hosting New England. We have the Pittsburgh Steelers with Mitch Trubisky starting against, Bailey Zappi is presumed to be the starter for the New England Patriots. These offenses, Chad, Pittsburgh is averaging 16 points per game. New England, dead last, averaging 12 points per game. Scoring is down. The NFL sends out press releases each Monday and Tuesday, and they point to things that are true, but it covers up some issues that I think are very difficult to explain or figure out. They'll send out roughly 75% of the games this year are within one score in the fourth quarter. That's great. But when New England is facing Los Angeles, and it's 6-0 in the fourth quarter, that's a one-score game that is awful. And that counts for the numbers that they're pushing. They want excitement and entertainment, and they want drama. Maybe you get the drama, but it's not exciting. Is it entertaining? Well, the numbers are up, so fans are entertained. What do we point to? I think it's a number of issues. I don't think it's name, image, likeness. I think it's the development of offenses or the lack thereof in college football. The NFL has they've embraced those offenses. Look around the league for what it was to what it is now, what Saban was complaining about to what he has adjusted to at Alabama, for instance, at the quarterback spot. There's a lot of movement, though, in the portal that I think affects the quarterback development in a system. And, I mean, the fact in a 4th and 1 in the NFL today, quarterbacks are in shotgun, explains a lot about what's not happening across the league. But I think what we gloss over is the coaches are just not that good at developing players behind the scenes. Oh, we don't have enough time. Then stop with the dizzy bat races in April and May when you actually do have players in for organized team activities or mini camps. Stop with and he's not one that's complaining about it, but Doug Peterson in mandatory minicamp does not make it mandatory that veterans have to show up if you're in the league for a certain amount of time, if you're a vested vet. Props. But he's not complaining about it, and for the most part, the players show up and they produce. That's what you have to do. And I don't think, a lot of times, Chad, I don't think the development from the assistant coaches is all that great. I think another factor, a lot of the really good offensive coordinators are not now head coaches. And when they become head coaches, they're not necessarily doing what made them become a head coach. They were hired because they were great play callers. They were hired because they developed quarterbacks or worked well with said quarterback. And then they became a head coach and failed miserably. Or they're on the hot seat. Or they're just getting a job and they've got a young quarterback that's probably not going to work out all that well. Injuries are a factor, but don't let them fool you. Scoring was down in September. They're going to point to all the injuries and all the backups across the league now. And that is a convenient excuse. And I'm not buying it because I saw it happen in week 1, 2, 3, and 4. And by the time October rolled around, kickers were in the MVP race for individual teams. And there's several punters and kickers that would be listed as the top 5 players on said roster. That's ridiculous. And at some point, while we complain and laugh at Iowa that won 10 games and could barely muster field goals, that in the Big Ten championship game, the over-under for the first half for Iowa was 0.5. Would they score a point was what you were betting on. Could they get a field goal? Would Michigan turn the ball over in their own territory and give Iowa a field goal? We're seeing that in the league right now. But the excuse making of, we got 9 backups starting this weekend. 10 rookies are starting across the league. Fine. They should be better than what they are. And the coaches that want to point blame or deflect blame, they're not necessarily pointing blame, but it's about execution. It's not about we're going to coach them up and the plays are there. We're just not doing it well. Whatever. It's time to stop the excuse making and actually produce what the rules are set up to do. It is extremely difficult to play corner in the NFL right now. I think it's the most difficult position in the league. You're on an island, and the rules are set against you. You've got illegal contact after 5 yards. Defensive pass interference. You're not reviewing that. But yet, scoring is where it is. And it's not over the last 3 years. 2021, scoring was way up. 2022, by the way, during the COVID year where fans weren't in attendance, scoring was up. The offseason didn't happen then, except for Tampa, and scoring was up. So they're not pointing that out. They're pointing to the low-hanging fruit of, the quarterbacks are the backups and we're seeing a lot of movement. That's BS. I point to the coaching staffs and the development or lack thereof and the fact that coaches are trying to keep their jobs, so they're deflecting to their roster. Don't let them sell you on what has been mediocre job execution from the top down.
Hutton, I think ultimately, you're right. This falls at the feet of the coaches for not figuring it out and being better offensive coaches. I think the problem is on both ends, college and pro, but for different reasons. I think in the NFL, you've got a lot of coaches that are coordinators or offensive coaches that spend a lot of time watching film and devising things and plays and a system that works without acknowledging what players they're using. It's pieces on a chessboard, but to them, all of those pieces are roughly equal. So everything's kind of the same. There's not a lot of advancement or development of, I need to utilize this guy's skill set, or I need to draft a guy who does this well, or my quarterback can only do this, this, and this, but he's really good at this, this, and this, so I'm going to change the offense completely to fit the plays that work for him, and I'm going to find a way to make it work with my personnel. It's kind of just a catch-all. I'm going to devise plays that should work, but not take into account the players they have. And in college, I think you've got a lot of coaches who run the programs they have, and I understand this totally. They're running their program. So what I mean by that is they're recruiting and trying to bring in guys that fit what they do, not necessarily what fits as the universal chess piece or really a checkers piece to the NFL of what they're going to do with that player. They're trying to find guys that fit the skill set of what they do offensively or defensively. So when players are there for a while, it's they're being coached into a system the coach possesses that he wants to utilize, whether that be the coordinators or the head coach if the head coach has the defense or offense. So it's the two not really shaking hands in the middle with college and NFL that's led to this bad offense in the NFL. I also feel like, to your point, coaches are just very lazy about this one thing in the NFL. Well, if they don't know how to do this, this, and this, and they're not great at this by the time we get them, there's no help. I'm not going to sit here and teach technique or fundamental as much or any of that. Either they can do it or they can't.
And they should be able to do it by then. They're pros.
They should be able
fundamentally.
To. But I'm saying you can develop players into something you're doing better.
Well, they're doing that, though.
I do think there's time to learn something else.
Think about how the rules changed on tackling and how the defenses evolved and developed in that. That was a coached thing. That was a coached rule that players had to get on board with because they have a CBA that allowed them to change the rules when they wanted to for health and safety. All fine. That's not becoming really an issue. You don't hear players discussing that anymore. That was coached. So I mean, you mentioned like teams bringing in players to fit their system in college. Yes, that should be the same way in the NFL.
Well, honestly, I think the transfer portal should actually help NFL coaches.
Well,
and here's why: they're getting a different experience, different terminology a lot of times. And a lot of these guys are going to different styles of offense.
But you may be
so
coached
they should
in a different
be a little
way.
bit more advanced, yeah.
On the fundamentals, I'm saying.
Right, but they're going to get coached a different way when they get to the NFL, too, based on the coach that drafts them. So that should help their advancement. What you don't want is one guy who does one thing a certain way. It's like the knock on the Mike Leach quarterback for years, right? Oh, he only knows this way. Their terminology is very limited. Doesn't work, doesn't translate to the NFL.
But I'm thinking
if guys are playing at 2 and 3 places over the course of their college career, and if they're playing for good coaches, which sometimes they're not, but if they're playing for good offensive coaches, that should aid them into the NFL. I don't think we've seen the full. That's not manifested itself fully yet into the NFL.
But
we're still in the beginning days of quarterbacks playing at multiple places, most of them.
Yeah.
So that's kind of starting. I would say Jalen Hurts is one good example of how it can work, where he was at Bama, then he was at Oklahoma, and it's worked out pretty well in the NFL. So I don't know. There's definitely a reason for this, and we're kind of breaking it down to why offenses are so bad this year in the NFL. And I think all of this probably fits into it.
No doubt. And I think, too, like I'm looking at from like coaches in the league that will try to adjust a quarterback's arm angle on a throw. We saw it with Tebow, for instance. Where we didn't see it was with Patrick Mahomes. You drafted him to fit your style, and you're letting Mahomes be Mahomes, right? Meanwhile, you have the greatest coach of all time with a rookie quarterback paired with Josh McDaniels, who then becomes the head coach of the Raiders. And Bill Belichick does what? He goes with Joe Judge and Matt Patricia to develop Mac Jones. It's ridiculous. And he's the GOAT. So if we're going to go from the very top of the league as the head coach making that decision to where we saw Frank Reich get booted as the guy who was hired to develop the number 1 overall pick, turns out it was Bryce Young, there's a massive gap between the organizations, how they're viewed, and the mentality of developing the quarterback seems to be about the same. And that's going back to what is going on here. I mean,
I think
it's not like we have more elite quarterbacks 10 years ago than we do now.
Here's what I think you should see more of.
There was just more execution then.
We talked about this with Justin Fields and pairing him up with Ryan Day, right? Just like assistant coaches use a great head coach or a great system to elevate their careers, position coaches then go to another place and become a coordinator.
Yep.
Then they eventually go and become a head coach somewhere. Are we going to enter an era where those very few can't-miss quarterback prospects, they get teamed up with their quarterback coach or their coordinator in college, and as more and more college coaches look to get out of the NIL transfer portal world, just move on up with that guy when he gets drafted and say, okay, now you get this guy for another 10 years in your career, and we're going to run that offense. It's not the worst idea if you're an owner and you're sold that, this is the guy. You draft, who's been the most hyped, Trevor Lawrence, Andrew Luck before that. You draft that guy and say, I'm going to bring on their guy from Clemson or Stanford or wherever, and we're just going to pair those two together because in the interviews with this player, I know how much he values the help he gets from this coach. And if this coach wants to move up to the NFL, now's the time to do it, and he can stay right here with this quarterback for the foreseeable future.
But there is a lot of perception of guys who are paired with a quarterback that aren't really that good, right? And I view that through the lens of, Nathaniel Hackett. He's hired because Aaron Rodgers was being recruited to join Denver. And now he's the offensive coordinator with the Jets. And, we're at the bottom of the league.
And that's
one,
though, too, that if it works for Aaron Rodgers and his offense, it's fine.
Right, but
so that
Hackett's being hired because of Rodgers.
Yes, but even if that's the case, as long as they're paired up, you're fine. If that quarterback leaves or the guy goes to another job, he's going to get exposed.
Adam Gase.
For not being a good coach.
another example.
But again, it works for those quarterbacks. My only point is, if these guys are so great in college, which some of them are, and they go to the NFL and they suck, then something's going on here. Either they were inflated because of personnel around them in college, or it was a system thing, or they really don't have what it takes ultimately to be a pro quarterback, or they're not getting good coaching.
Well, some of it,
and they're not getting the right coaching.
Some of it, too, is you have to coach them based on the speed of the game. And it's not necessarily everyone's running 4-3, but the hash marks. Everything's played in the NFL down the middle of the field. And in college, it's on one side or the other based on where the hashes are lined up. So you get to see more openings. There's more room to work with.
Yeah.
It's more obvious where your reads are going. And the speed is different. In the NFL, everything's happening fast. How fast did the Colts get to the punter for the Titans this past weekend? He couldn't even get the punt off.
As fast as someone can run without being touched.
Yeah, as fast as it took for him to catch the ball.
Yeah.
And they were there to block it and take his knee out. I think all that plays a factor. But the coaches, I'm not saying they get a free pass because there's a lot of coaches on the hot seat. But I think coaches get a free pass when in terms of how good they actually are, because the quarterback just clicks and they get it. And they're propped up. And then 3 years later, they haven't developed the next quarterback, and he's deemed a bust.
Which is a problem.
One big thing on every NFL game for Week 14, we've got it for you. Some actual good matchups with good offenses this week and in prime time. That's next on Hot Mic with Hutton and Withrow across the OutKick Network.
Hey, here's a feel-good story. You ready? And this needs to be talked about more. You know, lost in all of the, hey, man, inspire change, Whitey's bad of the NFL. There are folks in the NFL that are, well, great dudes. The Carolina Panthers have a player named Hayden Hurst. Hayden Hurst is doing something that everybody in sports should do. Yeah, I know everybody in sports should try to be a rapper. Yeah, I know, like Von Miller, everyone in sports should get their side piece to not frickin' talk about your indiscretions. Yeah, I know everybody in the NFL as a wide receiver has to act like a damn idiot. I get all that. I do, I swear. But Hayden Hurst, he ain't like that. Hayden Hurst is trying to shed light on veterans with suicide and suicide prevention. That's a good thing. No, it's a really good thing. Suicide's a major issue, and it's only going to get worse. I'm going to tell you right now, this is a separate issue, but lack of parenting. Do whatever you want leads to suicide. People want direction. People want purpose. People want guardrails. People don't want to be left free. They get depressed. They get depressed if you don't have anybody giving you direction. And that's the society of parents that we're living in. Suicide rates among teenagers are at all-time high, and I hate to say this, but they're only going to go higher. I don't know if we're allowed to say that, but that's what's going to happen. When you have a lack of parenting, when you let kids run free, drugs, alcohol, whatever they want in our current society are actually sometimes made available by idiot parents. I had a friend who let his kid drink in my house, and I'm like, you're an idiot. I love him. He's one of my best friends, but you're an idiot. It ain't cool. It ain't smart. It ain't fun. It's stupid. I can't even imagine my kids asking me to do that in our house. But anyway, that's parenting. That's where parenting is headed. But when you go overseas and you are in a war, and that war involves killing, you killing somebody, you seeing devastation, you seeing what a bomb can do to a town, the horrific things that our veterans have seen and had to do. Of course, that comes home with you. What do you think you do? You flip a switch, you come home, and you never think about it. Hell, I think about things that I did 10 years ago that weren't even bad. 20 years ago. Like, why did I do that? That's stupid. I mean, the only perfect people, as we know, are writers, media guys. They're the only ones. They're the only ones that are absolutely perfect. Even when they have affairs, even when they do stupid stuff, they write it off as, well, I was figuring life out. We, as the rest of us, don't have that same grace. And veterans come home and they're like, oh, man. Can you imagine Let me just give you a scenario. Let's just say you are in charge of taking a hill and you and your guys gunned down 50 people. You think that just leaves you? You think that just goes away when you come back to a nation that hates you, that doesn't respect you, that doesn't help you, that treats illegal immigrants better than you? Hell no.
Sixth and Peabody, our broadcast site each and every day. Hot Mic with Hutton Withrow across the OutKick Network.
I think Bronson Arroyo went out and got himself some moonshine when he finished up here.
What would you go with that? Do they have the Christmas out there? The eggnog?
I feel like you may have had it at some point. It's like a cookies and cream.
Oh yeah, I've got that.
Yeah, I'm intrigued.
I'll let you try it. I'm not sure if they sell it here yet. Soon.
This is an advanced.
It might be.
You're a taste tester. Hutton is the tastemaker of Old Smoky.
Yes.
And clothing, apparel lines, Yeehaw beer, Old Smoky, a little bit of everything. He's a tastemaker.
My palate is made for moonshine only.
Yeah, he's the moonshine expert. Is it a sommelier? Is the wine expert? Hutton's that, but with moonshine.
I'm a level 3. What is it? Level 2. I can pair moonshine with practically anything for you.
It's like this is.
I've often wondered.
Boysenberry twigs. I'm getting a sense of here.
I'm not saying they're
Salt?
not good at determining what is good. Okay, but who determined that the man or woman that said, you know what, my palate's better than yours? How do you know? How do you know that we're judging it? It's like, what's fashion? These people that are older than grandparents are determining what's in style.
Yeah,
on the runway, and I'm thinking to myself, like, who anoints them? I know the public, but like it had to start somewhere.
It's both a blessing, like you have to have a really good taste buds. I've done a little bit of research on this.
Yeah, but
by research, I watched this
people
Apple TV
it,
show,
right?
Drops of God. That's about wine tasting,
okay.
and the two people that are squaring off in this wine tasting competition. You have to develop it.
Right.
It's like training any other muscle. It is. I mean, these people blindfold themselves. It's about scent.
They know
it's about taste. Like they have to be taste tested, different things.
Year.
They have to know all that, but like it's getting a sense of what there's a skill to it.
But
I thought it was crazy too. Like who decides how someone's good at this?
I'm not ridiculing them. They are being trained based on a set of parameters that was established. That was just agreed to. I don't know. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, there's no.
It's not like it's not like an equation that someone.
Yes, it's still very subjective. It's not like science to where it's like this one. I mean, I guess there are some levels, but like this is better than this because it contains these properties and the score of these properties together and the purity of it is this high. Like looking at the clarity of a diamond or whatever, right?
Yes.
There's still a big measure of subjectivity to it.
But you can still see whether it's clear
But I mean,
or not.
there's also age involved, and there are regions that are better, that are So,
Chad, by the way,
I don't know that we solved
never
anything
goes
here,
wrong
but we
in
discussed it.
trying to determine Woodford from Weller. He's very good at that. The palate
wheat from rye. Close my eyes, blindfold me, give me a taste of it. I can get pretty close to it.
We can also tell you the good and bad of NFL Week 14. It is time for one big thing on every NFL game. Cardinals and Commanders are on the bye week this week. Kicks off tonight in Week 14. Patriots and Steelers, Thursday Night Football. Over the last 7 regular season matchups between these two teams, the Patriots 6-1 overall. And think about the organizations here. You've got some of the most stable organizations from the top down over the last 2 decades.
Oh, yeah.
And in the case of the Steelers, forever.
Felt like an annual playoff game between these two in the AFC.
Yes, yes. And the magnitude tonight, well, not all that much because of the Patriots. It's big for the Steelers based on the playoff situation. I will say the Steelers, they're 10-1 in their last 11 one-score games. They are 12-2 in their last 14 one-score games. Trubisky tonight.
This is a dreadful game between two very good franchises over the years, but man, it's tough to get excited about this one. Now, I am interested to see, Hutton, though, if there's even really a drop-off from Pickett to Trubisky. Don't know that there will be.
We'll see. Could be one of two things could happen with that. Trubisky needs to let it rip. Pickett would, but he's being coached not to. He's throwing like 5-yard passes. Bucs are on the road against Atlanta. Divisional matchup. Very average to below average teams. Bucs are 5-7. Atlanta's 6-6, and they lead the division. 10 1,000-yard seasons. The last 10 years. Mike Evans. He's done it again. We're watching a Hall of Famer. Atlanta's defense. This is crazy. Atlanta's defense has gone 24 consecutive quarters without allowing a touchdown. That's the largest streak in the NFL.
It's got a lot to do with their opponents in those 24 quarters because it's been bad.
It's also a really bad offense. It speaks to the offenses. You're right. Rams are taking on the Ravens. Don't look now, but the Rams are making a legit playoff push. They'll have to win in the elements. This could be the worst weather game of Sunday. Steady rain, potentially heavy rain, and winds around 20 miles per hour. It could reach up to 30. This will be ugly, sloppy, and par for the course across the league. It's also been sloppy if you're the opponent playing Baltimore. Baltimore is plus 137 in point differential. That's the best in the AFC. The Ravens have just a half-game lead over the Chiefs, Dolphins, and the Jags currently for the top spot in the AFC. Beyond the obvious with Lamar Jackson, who is in the MVP hunt, the Ravens, they are looking around going, okay, how do we get some steady consistency? They have a chance today or on Sunday against a Rams team that has been way better than expected. Jackson's last 2 seasons after playing 12 games, and he's looking for Baltimore in the postseason. That's where he's going to have to earn the money, Chad. He got the extension. We haven't seen him produce what he does in the regular season in the postseason. Bears are hosting the Lions. Don't overlook this. The Lions, they head to Chicago. They face a Bears team that was on the bye week last week and who they narrowly defeated in Week 11. They needed 12 points in the fourth quarter to beat Chicago. And despite the big disparity in records of this matchup, this is a matchup of two defenses going in opposite directions. The Bears defense, much improved. And the Lions, they've allowed 26 or more points 4 weeks in a row. Chad, are you still a believer in Detroit?
I'm still a believer in Detroit. Green Bay is giving me some cause for concern within that division, the way they've played lately. And we're going to get to it, but my guy Josh Dobbs is now the starter again, or remains the starter in Minnesota. Need to see him bounce back to know what that division looks like. But Hutton, still a believer in Detroit.
Colts and Bengals, Minshew Mania is back. That's 4 straight wins for the backup quarterback.
All that dude does.
And now the Colts are where they're not supposed to be. They're 7-5. They are a game and a half behind Jacksonville for the division. And the Bengals, well, they got good play from Jake Browning, AFC's Offensive Player of the Week. Can they repeat that? We'll see. Bengals are 6-6, Colts 7-5. The Browns, also 7-5. They are hosting Jacksonville. It's a short week for the Jags. They're played on Monday night. Now they're on the road. Weather could be a factor here too. Trevor Lawrence, he may not play. C.J. Beathard would get the start on the road. And while the Browns have been plagued by injuries at quarterback, they are 5-1 against the spread this season. That's tied for the best record in the league. That defense shows up week in and week out, Chad.
No doubt. This is kind of like you said, don't overlook Detroit and Chicago. This is a wildly interesting game to me. With the Trevor Lawrence deal going on, with Joe Flacco in game number 2, I've got my eyes on this one. And I didn't think I'd say that earlier in the week.
And if Lawrence plays, even more so.
Yeah.
But he was limited in practice, so he's trying to give it a go. Saints are hosting the Panthers. It's a must-win for the Saints. They're 5-7. They're playing Jameis Winston at quarterback. And on the other sideline, Bryce Young, who hasn't thrown for over 200 yards in a game since Week 8. And now he faces an above-average defense, pass defense. So if you're playing the Saints defensively in fantasy, start them against the Panthers offense. At least I'm looking at it as a must-win factor for New Orleans, where the pressure's on to win at home. We got to get it done.
I don't think anyone, and obviously David Tepper didn't expect this, but I don't think anyone thought the Panthers were going to be quite this bad.
So,
especially offensively, and that's why they fired their coach midseason.
The Saints have not covered against the spread at home this season. The Panthers, they are 1-5-1 against the spread on the road.
So something's got to give.
That's right
on this one.
Things may get crazy in the Meadowlands in New Jersey. Winds between 15 and 25 miles per hour. More steady rain as the Texans visit the Jets. You've got Zach Wilson, who's back as the starter. Plenty of storylines here. And then the last rookie head coach and quarterback to make it to the playoffs was Chuck Pagano and Andrew Luck. The Texans, if you're going to make your playoff push, get this game in hand. Head back to Houston with a victory. Stroud is the first NFL quarterback from Ohio State to eclipse 3,000 yards passing in a season.
You don't
Isn't
want
that crazy?
That's crazy. You don't want to leave this game if you're Houston, Hutton, saying, man, it sucks that Zach Wilson's re-entry into the lineup was the spark that the Jets needed to get things going offensively.
It sucks we couldn't score 12 points
against us, because that would not be a good way for this game to end for them.
No. Seahawks and 49ers also face off here, and you've got Week 16's Monday Night Football matchup against the Ravens. It's a Super Bowl preview, but you're looking at what happens with the 49ers as they return home after a big win on the road. Seattle's reeling, and now the next 2 games for Seattle after losing. 49ers, and then they will host the Eagles. That is not easy. 49ers are 21-4 with Christian McCaffrey starting. 30 touchdowns in 25 games for Christian McCaffrey. Kyle Shanahan 1-31, though, when trailing by 3 or more points entering the fourth quarter. That's also insane.
You know what's insane to me, too? Double-digit favorite for the 49ers against the 6-6 Seahawks team. That's a little high based on what I was expecting. I thought it'd be more like 7.5 instead of 10.5. But that's Vegas believing in the Niners, and why wouldn't they?
Yeah, the Vikings and Raiders are also facing off as Josh Dobbs returns for Minnesota.
He's back, baby.
Bills and Chiefs, 6-6. The Bills would miss the playoffs right now. And, well, they're 2-6 in those close matchups that Steve Tasker pointed out, including losses to the Jets in overtime and New England. Those are games that keep you out of the postseason. Josh Allen's got a lingering shoulder injury. Despite the bye week, they had the week off. And Mahomes is also popping up on the injury report. He has a pectoral injury listed. Chiefs are 2-3 in their last 5 games. You can win at Arrowhead. Bills need to prove they can just win a close game right now. Chargers are hosting the Denver Broncos. Chargers 5-7, Broncos 6-6. Linebacker Khalil Mack. He leads the league, 15 sacks, and he's recorded at least 2 sacks in each of his last 3 games. Faces Russell Wilson and company now.
That's all Brandon Staley's leadership on defense. That's what Khalil Mack. That's what we're seeing there, Hutton.
Sunday night
defense
football
isn't the problem for him.
The winner holds control of the NFC East. It's the Eagles at 10-2, the Cowboys at 9-3. To this point, Philly is 3-1 through a tough stretch with wins against the Cowboys, Chiefs, and Bills. The Eagles, well, if they can get through their next 2 opponents, they can grab hold of that number 1 seed and not look back. They've got 3 winnable games to finish the season. The Niners, though, forced Jalen Hurts to throw it 45 times. Can Dallas jump out to a quick lead and force the pass? Dallas was able to do that early on, throwing the football with Dak Prescott, who's on an MVP pace. Monday Night Football, you've got 2 games kicking off at the same time. Titans and Dolphins will kick off on ESPN. The knock on the Dolphins all year is they haven't beaten a premium opponent. They have the 4-8 Titans. Then they will face some 500 teams as well down the stretch. But, I mean, they have a Week 17 matchup against Baltimore that could determine the number 1 overall seed. And, Chad, the other Monday Night Football matchup, Packers against the Giants. Green Bay is a top 10 scoring defense. And here's their offense putting up points when they need it the most. All of a sudden, Jordan Love has clicked with LaFleur. They're actually scoring points in the first half. Packers on a 3-game run. Last 2 victories speak volumes, having picked up wins over the Detroit Lions and Kansas City Chiefs. 16-0 is LaFleur's record in December as a head coach. LaFleur.
It's going to be a December to remember for the Packers if things continue the way they have the last few weeks. I don't know which game is less interesting on Monday Night Football. If I had to pick from a national standpoint, what does America want to see? The Dolphins beat up on the Titans with that offense.
America will watch
the Packers' possible emergence.
They'll watch Packers and New York market is what
probably
that's on ABC. That's the only reason.
Yeah.
But I would say you want to watch Miami.
I'm here to say I'm not overly interested in either. I'd rather see Miami just aesthetically.
70 points.
Yeah, just I'd rather watch that offense. But yeah, I mean it's you're right. It's Packers Giants from a franchise standpoint.
Yeah. Tommy DeVito.
Tommy DeVito. All of Italian Americans everywhere are going to tune in for that. He's their patron saint now.
Yeah. And if the Giants somehow pull off this victory, Green Bay they have the playoffs right here. Just go grab it.
But Matt LaFleur is 16-0 in December.
Crazy. Coming up, we'll give our best bets for Patriots Steelers.
What you're experiencing is the bold taste of a Southern legend. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey, authentic Tennessee mountain-style spirits. We believe in crafting flavors that were born from tradition but defy expectation. And pioneering a new experience with every sip. Because if it doesn't do this, it ain't this. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey. Come on.
Welcome into OutKick the show. I am Clay Travis, your fearless leader. I am going to continue to argue that sports is one of the great unifying forces in all of American life. ESPN is a sinking ship. Democrats are now the party of the white, woke college graduate.
We live in a land of participation trophies.
You gotta lean into the turns. You really gotta lean into the turns.
When Leah Thomas walked in that first day, it got silent, and every girl was uncomfortable.
Very difficult to go back-to-back years in the NFL with the number 1 overall pick.
Is it fair for people to be upset with Barbie?
I've been out of LA long enough to have forgotten that libs, no matter how ridiculous the scenario, are gonna lib. Another week of inflation, another week with Biden with COVID, and another set of losers to crown. People don't watch the WNBA on TV, in person, on a plane, on a train, on a bus, or on purpose. I mean, what have you seen firsthand of how this has affected you in the plant and your fellow employees? Under Joe Biden, the Taliban has retaken Afghanistan. Putin has invaded Ukraine. So if there was ever a time for freaking aliens to inhabit and conquer Earth, now would be that time.
We've seen coaches throw water bottles. We've seen coaches act like idiots. We've seen coaches slap other coaches. But I think if you're involved in carjacking, you're inherently a rotten human being. The level of stupid that sometimes gets on our YouTube chat just gives me a headache. You're born a male, play with males. You're born a female, play with females. Don't at me about it. The American people are being cheated. We, ladies and gentlemen, are being cheated.
I made the call to end the Me Too movement, and today I'm going to continue making that case. And that's just a way to further taunt these women, to make them feel less than, to make them realize that this has just become a big joke. Deion Sanders is the Donald Trump of football.
We were directly impacted by the whole Leah Thomas thing, and we were able to see you guys on the ground with your signs supporting. That was huge.
They were saying, oh, it's only 1 or 2. That's rubbish, and we all know that's rubbish. Once those trans-identifying males were able to succeed, it just encouraged others.
Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey. A bold taste of the Southern Legend.
Fun day here at 6th and Peabody with Yeehaw Beer and Old Smoky Moonshine. Hot Mic with Hutton with our rolls on across the OutKick network. Chad, intrigue. So you mentioned Cincinnati hosting Jacksonville. It could be a game where two backups are playing, right?
Cleveland hosting Jacksonville.
Cleveland, sorry.
You could have two backups. We'll have one for sure with Flacco. Yeah.
Yeah, Cleveland's defense. You're intrigued by that, but not tonight. Look,
I shouldn't say that. I'm somewhat intrigued.
I want to see the car accident.
I want to see Mitch Trubisky at quarterback. That's if you give me an NFL game, I'm going to tell you something I can find in it. Either car accident worthy, or a player I want to watch, or a quarterback I want to see develop. I want to see what they look like. Granted, against a great defense, the Patriots, for all the jokes about the offense and their record and 2-10 and everything else.
Yeah,
defense has been really good. But I want to see how Trubisky looks in that game.
I also want to see how Al Michaels will react to this game.
I think Al Michaels will be on like his C+ game only because of the franchises. Like if you took these two teams tonight that have no offense and you made them Tampa Bay versus Houston, then he would be half asleep the entire time. But because it's Patriots, Steelers, he's going to have a little bit more pep in his step.
He had a good production meeting with Belichick. I'm sure that went well.
Yeah, that was the production meeting.
The OutKick
That's
store.
How I answered every question.
Playing on a new field. That's right. The new OutKick store just launched, and to celebrate, we're offering a buy one, get one 50% off deal for a limited time. You can find our favorite polos, T-shirts, and more when you visit shop.outkick.com, and you'll score 50% off. All you got to do is visit shop.outkick.com, add items to your cart, and then the discount will be automatically applied. Dave, your thoughts on tonight's Thursday Night Football matchup?
This game is Nebraska-Iowa for the NFL.
Really is.
And
it's a good comparison.
Minus the low viewership.
Yeah. I mean, at least they'll have that going for them.
Minus the Midwestern morals, too.
Chad already knows the answer to this because we talked about it during a break when you had stepped out.
Okay.
But do you know what the heaviest bet is as far as where the handle's at for the first touchdown score?
Anytime.
I can't
first
answer.
Time touchdown score tonight.
For tonight, yep.
Who it will be?
Mm-hmm.
So it's not Najee Harris who's
like
playing
the best odds, you're saying?
No, not the best odds, where the handle is. So where most people that go to this book are placing their money. And it's
got to be a Steelers running back.
Najee is second. Actually, first is that there is no touchdown.
Wow.
That's ridiculous.
Wow.
Bill Belichick weighing in on that one. That's not even an option.
This is crazy.
I'm looking right now at mine. I've tried to bet that, and I don't even see it.
And this
is going anytime touchdown.
It's a Patriots defense that has had 3 straight games of 10 points or less allowed, and they still lost. And the Steelers' offense.
I think the Pittsburgh Steelers will score tonight. I feel pretty confident.
Special teams will play a factor in honor of Steve Tasker.
If Nebraska-Iowa was a hearty stew, this game is spoiled New England clam chowder versus a cold Primanti Brothers sandwich with fries on it.
That still sounds good, though.
Which is a Pittsburgh thing that I still just do not recommend you do. The fries are better on the side. It's a side item for a reason. Don't put it on your sandwich. I don't get that.
That's ridiculous.
It is ridiculous for Belichick there.
He likes the clam chowder.
Chad, give us an anytime touchdown score. You're always great at this.
Hutton,
give us a winner.
am on. I don't like to toot my own horn.
Go ahead.
Mainly because I've had no reason to toot my own horn this year because my record has been abysmal at times. Been pretty good, though, with this one. I am going Najee Harris, anytime touchdown. It is plus 190. Give me Najee Harris, Steelers, anytime touchdown, plus 190. Let me give you a sleeper backdoor bet on the anytime touchdown. Deontay Johnson is plus 300. Maybe him and Trubisky have a little something, more so than what Kenny Pickett had with him. So that's one to watch, too, with some odds in your favor on that one.
David, do you have it pulled up right now? The over-under? As of this morning, the betting total for Week 14 in this game, the lowest in an NFL game in 3 decades, dating back to 1980. No NFL over-under has ever closed below 30. Where are they now?
We're right at 30.
It'll close
think
lower. Take the under.
If some more money comes in late, we could get it to 29.5. I'd love to see it. I do think, Chad, you're talking about anytime touchdown. Steelers defense might not be a bad way to go.
Yeah, sack, fumble, recovery.
That's a good one, too. Yeah, I didn't even look at the odds on that. Do you have that, Davey? What's the plus odds on that?
Here's Chad falling into Davey's trap
yes,
again.
No, I'm not.
I'm not telling you to take it. I'm just letting you know.
No, Davey always gets me going after I've had 3 drinks. He'll send me something when I'm home and on a Friday night, and I'll see it. I'm like, I'm going to put $50 on that. That sounds like a good plan.
Pittsburgh Steelers anytime defense, anytime touchdown, or special teams plus 600. And this is according to DK, but the no touchdown score, you can only put that on the. You can't do that as an anytime touchdown, but if you want to do it for the first touchdown, for no touchdown score, that's plus 1,400.
Get after it.
I like it. I like those odds. Have you guys seen this Sean McDermott story that's popped in the last hour?
We were talking about it during the break. You have a statement from him at all?
No. So Ty Dunn has this report on Bills head coach Sean McDermott. So this is all stemming from an address to his team at St. John's Fisher College in Pittsford, New York, before the season. McDermott's morning address began innocently enough. Then he told the entire team they needed to come together. But then sources on hand say he used a strange model, the terrorist on 9/11/2001. He cited the hijackers as a group of people who were all able to get on the same page to orchestrate attacks to perfection. One by one, McDermott started asking specific players in the room questions. Quote, what tactics do you think they used to come together? A young player tried to methodically answer, and then the question was, what do you think their biggest obstacle was? A veteran player then answered, TSA, which mercifully lightened the mood.
And this is from a few years back?
It just says an incident. All I'm reading is the excerpt. That's an incident from Pittsford, New York.
This would have been during their 2021 training camp.
Yeah, sounds
probably
Florio
not
says
the way
sounds
to
like
go.
Michael Scott. And
Yeah,
that's a good comparison here.
Not the way to go with your team.
No, dumb.
I could see Scott doing that.
Yes.
I'm just always fascinated by the timing of stories.
That's
this happened in 2021, Davey.
Correct.
So they're 6-6. They're inconsistent, and now stories like this get out.
Yeah, and that's why they get out. People start
because
chirping.
Ty Dunn or whoever else covers the Bills wouldn't be able to recover from it if they were 10-2.
Well, but
right now,
Ty Dunn is in the middle of like a 3-part series on why the Bills are having so many issues. He's like exploring all the issues within the organization and on the field. So this is where you have the deep dive.
McDermott did not
because they're 6-6.
Making the comments, he said, I regretted mentioning 9/11 in my message that day, and I immediately apologized to the team. He added that his goal was to get his guys to understand the importance of being on the same page.
Dumb.
I just think a lot
that's
of people.
That's a lack of social skills.
We know a lot of people
and
who
self-awareness.
just really say the wrong things at the wrong time.
Yes.
Quite often, and have no clue they're even doing it, or just aren't well studied enough to understand how to handle a certain situation. Like a joke you make around 3 of your buddies, or like among friends, is not something you make to a stranger that you just meet, or certainly not a joke you make to a room full of people that you're coaching in that moment. So that's very odd from Sean McDermott.
I'm trying to think if there was
a
way
at least he apologized.
to go about it. Like if you're thinking the art of war, it's like, well, how are you trying to attack your enemy?
David.
No, I'm not going to say like
the
he
way to
shouldn't
do
have
it is
done
just
that.
the way the country came together. If you're going to even
the
go
way
there.
to do it is to like use the other side of a war that's the American side.
Right.
Like there are plenty of World War II stories about people having to come together that he could have illustrated, not the terrorist of 9/11.
So many other examples. Yes. Are we any of us taking the Bills this week? I doubt it, as they're taking on the Chiefs. It's time for NFL Eliminator. I can't lose again.
None of us can.
Jacksonville hurt me last week. So we've all suffered a loss through this. And
we've all suffered, okay.
We have.
We have all suffered for this.
I took the Jags against the Bengals. Chad, you went with Miami. Davey went with Detroit last week in Week 13.
Miami did win, correct? This is one game that I did not lose.
They did win.
That's good.
Lions also won.
I thought I remembered that.
And Chad, you have the floor, I believe, first pick this week for NFL Eliminator.
Let's see who I picked. Let's go ahead and let's roll it out there right now. The Green Bay Packers. I did this before the show. I was rushed, but I thought to myself, Giants, not a full believer. Tommy DeVito, nice story. Not going to get it done. I like what Jordan Love has done. To me, this qualifies a risky pick in this game.
Yeah.
Given some of the other options I had. The biggest point spread of the week I'd already taken. And I want to say that was maybe the Ravens that I'd already picked, but I'm going with a 6.5 point favorite. Give me the Packers to win.
Davey?
Guys, I typically try to avoid division matchups for this, but
it's a smart play by you.
Just from what I've seen lately, I'm going with the 49ers over the Seahawks. They're a double-digit favorite at this point. Geno Smith has never beaten San Francisco.
And they boat raced them earlier this year.
Yeah. So I feel confident. Plus, you got to look at some of the other teams that have been taken. And at this point, I feel that was the safest bet I had compared to who I remained eligible to pick.
I was surprised you guys didn't go with my selection. And the final selection.
I've probably already picked them.
Houston Texans.
No, I've not picked them.
They failed me earlier this season when I selected them against the Falcons. Now I'm selecting them against the Jets. Weather could be a factor. C.J. Stroud has played very up and down as of late, but the Texans are on a playoff push. The Jets certainly are not. They know Aaron Rodgers isn't coming back, although I believe that Zach Wilson is back because Rodgers is back in the fold. That's why they're starting him this week. And I think that means great things for Houston, quite frankly. You've got the Jets that are just woeful offensively. It's not going to get better. The team knows that Wilson sucks. They don't want him starting, but he's starting anyway. Robert Saleh doesn't even want to start him, I don't believe. But after a 4-3 start, they've dropped their last 5 games. Meanwhile, Houston is the surprise team this year making the playoff push in the AFC. This is when you make the turn and start to get on that path of playing the best football of the season going into the postseason. And with Jacksonville maybe not as uncertain as what they were on Monday or Tuesday with Trevor Lawrence's injury, the AFC South is also right there. And you're trying to keep in step with, also a surprise, the Indianapolis Colts, who are 7-5. I'm taking Houston, albeit on the road, against the New York Jets to win and come back with a victory. So I'm not eliminated from this competition.
It's a good pick, Hut. The only thing that scared me away from this one was it's likely going to be rainy and windy, and that
think about Zach Wilson
enough.
there.
I know that's the thing. They're just going to hand the ball to Breece Hall and see what their defense can do. So that was the one hesitation I had for that one. But we're about to get into ugly weather season, so
yeah, which is fun season for me. I like some of these bad weather games. Someone else who doesn't mind a bad weather game, Bill Belichick. Bill Belichick just announced will be the College Game Day celebrity guest picker for the Army-Navy game.
Wow.
On Saturday. So we're going to see maybe some personality out of Bill Belichick. Maybe more than him mumbling. Maybe not. His dad, Steve, coached at Navy,
there.
So he grew up in Annapolis. That's his tie.
I should know
where Stallions playing.
Where are they playing the game this year?
I don't know. Philly, I believe.
Okay.
That sounds right.
Let me double check where it is this year.
I've got it right here.
It's normally in Philly, but
it's at Gillette. That makes total sense.
Okay, never mind. Yeah.
I was going to say, is he taking the weekend off? That's very unlike Bill Belichick. Now he just walks down the hall and straight across to Gillette. So when they do the team walkthrough in Foxborough, they clear out the entire stadium the night before the game. They do it at Gillette. And I've always wondered, the team that was in the middle of Spygate does it at the stadium, and how many cameras they have across that place. Because on the radio team with the Titans, we would want to set up our gear the night before. We could not, we were escorted out and then back in to set up the gear for the next day's game. And I can imagine he's paranoid about having all the staff.
Making sure that you weren't putting any cameras anywhere.
Yeah, or just seeing their walkthrough. That was Brady's final game in 2019-2020.
Final game as a Pat. Not his
Pat,
final
yeah.
game. Went on to win a Super Bowl.
Wasn't Logan Ryan's either.
No, it was
Had
not.
the pick six on Brady.
And now
for the
Logan
win.
Ryan's playing again for the 49ers.
That's right. Guys.
What a wild world.
Back at it tomorrow. The weekend, though, has officially started, according to Chad Withrow.
We're well into it now. Thursday evening, here we go. Weekend
Enjoy
time, everybody.
the NFL's version of the Iowa Hawkeyes tonight on Thursday Night
It's a
Football.
hearty stew of a football game.
Back at it tomorrow, 3 o'clock Eastern.